views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us. 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, but to the point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Senior government figures hit back at the Archbishop of Canterbury after he used an Easter sermon to attack the government's new asylum plan.
Yeah, very good morning to you. It is 6 o'clock on Monday, the 18th of April. This is Breakfast on GB News with Rosie and Paul.
We're live across your TV, your radio and online. And happy Easter. Here's what's leading the news this morning.
Senior ministers clashed with the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, last night after he used an Easter sermon to attack the government's plan to send migrants to Rwanda. He argued that the plan was against Christian teachings, but ministers say it will tackle traffickers and save lives.
Boris Johnson is facing fresh calls for resignation as new revelations emerge of now a November 2020 party in which the Prime Minister allegedly arrived and started pouring the drinks. The Prime Minister will face the Commons tomorrow and is expected to apologise for breaking COVID rules.
And the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge led yesterday's Easter Sunday service in Windsor after the Queen said she would not be attending due to health issues. It comes ahead of the monarch's 96th birthday on Thursday.
Now you can join in any of our discussions. You can email gbviews@gbnews.uk or you can tweet us too @gbnews.
Yeah, very good morning to you. It is just gone 6 o'clock. To our top story today, then senior ministers have hit back at the Archbishop of Canterbury after he used an Easter Sunday service to attack the government's asylum plan.
Well, the new plan, I'm sure you're familiar, it's going to see tens of thousands of migrants who come to the UK through irregular routes, given then a one-way ticket to Rwanda to claim asylum there.
In his intervention, the Archbishop Justin Welby branded the strategy opposite to the nature of God. The sentiment was echoed by the Archbishop of York, who said the policy was depressing and distressing.
Well, Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Minister of State for Brexit Opportunities, countered that by saying the aim of the government's policy was to do good and that it would help those in genuine need and also make it harder for crime to prosper.
Another minister told the Mail that it would be ungodly if the government did not take action to curb people smuggling, adding that the policy had gone down well across the country.
Well, let's find out more. Joining us in the studio is Conor Tomlinson, political commentator for Young Voices UK. Conor, very good morning. We just gave some analysis, of course. There's been a lot of fallout since this announcement. Who do you empathise with the most? Who do you think's got it right?
Not to give all the viewers a heart attack, but I'm actually going to side with the Tory cabinet this morning, who don't seem to get much right on Conservative policy these days, but on this one, they're bang on the money. I think it's profoundly wrong that Justin Welby would say it's unchristian or ungodly to deter people from taking this dangerous journey. We saw last November when 31 people died, including a child, because the boat capsized. You've got lots of people making the channel crossings under the auspices of human trafficking gangs that are charging them thousands. You unfortunately have about 25% of all of the terrorist attacks on British soil in the last decade committed by people who came through the asylum channels and who were not properly vetted, including the Reading stabber, for example. Priti Patel is pairing this with a reformation of Prevent to be more robust, etc. And I don't think it's great to tar everyone with the same brush as well for the people who are genuinely seeking asylum, especially through the legitimate channels, versus people who would skip the queue with no documentation. I think the Tory cabinet are actually right on this one.
But isn't there criticism that there are virtually no legal routes to the UK anyway? To claim asylum, you have to be on British soil, and to get here, they have to do that illegally. But then if they come and do that illegally now, they're going to get shipped to Rwanda.
Well, I think that actually the main problem is the UN's Human Rights Convention laws on this, because the 1951 Convention and then its 1967 update didn't actually properly refine the definition of refugee all that well. That's why there's been a lot of contentions around each country saying, OK, it's not only that you're unable to live in your home country, it's that you're also unwilling. And it's also for very broad political reasons, whether you're being persecuted for your race and religion, completely fair, or for your political group. And then if we look at all of the countries around the world, there's a very small minority who are actually democracies. That's been, one of the main things about Ukraine recently. It's all the world leaders are happy to step in to try and ensure that the post-Soviet country remains a democracy in some fashion. Lots of the world's countries are not that. So the issue comes with the definition of, one, are you entitled to come to the UK first versus all the safe countries that are there along the way? And two, how many countries, how many people must we take in people from? We have no shortage of compassion, but we do have a shortage of space.
We're going to hear from the Archbishop of York later on the programme, but I just want to give you his words as well, because he is in agreement with Justin Welby, perhaps unsurprisingly, but he says, after all, in law, there is no such thing as an illegal asylum seeker. It's the people who exploit them that we need to crack down on, not our sisters and brothers in their need. Could there have been a policy which came from that angle rather than this one regarding Rwanda? No,
because again, the issue is with the definition of asylum seeker. So the majority of people seeking asylum via the channel boats are fighting-age men. 50% of them are from Iran. Now, Iran is a terribly repressive regime, as we just saw with the deal that was to bring back various of our expats over there in exchange for the military tanks we supposedly owed them years ago. The problem is there are lots of countries like that. And so if we open our arms to everyone, we won't have space for the large-scale refugees from people like Ukraine, for example, or the Hong Kong situation, which we even caused in the 90s, thanks to giving them back to China. I'm perfectly happy for a temporary resettlement of Hong Kongers, but one, they're coming in through legitimate channels, through a serious government scheme, and two, they're being vetted very well. We can't actually afford to have unvetted boat-based migration with no papers, because it's too much of a security risk, and it means that we don't have the capacity for people who are seeking refuge from world conflicts.
Yeah. What about setting up processing? I mean, a lot of charities are saying that processing centres should be set up in places like British embassies around the world, so people can go to those embassies and then apply to come here, and that would be a safe legal route. Why isn't the government doing that?
I'm not actually sure. When Priti Patel was questioned on this a little while ago, she did say, I had a processing system set up for the Ukrainians in Calais. And then at the select committee, the fellow questioning, I forget the guy's name, but he said, it was two blokes in a desk with a ballpoint pen. That's hardly sufficient to process the amount of paperwork we have. So I think it's bureaucracy. I remember, I was at a party conference speech, and she got a round of applause when she stood up and said, I'll sever the head of the snake from human trafficking. Seems that snake was actually a bit of a hydra, because one of the main issues to stopping the human trafficking trade is, in fact, the Home Office and all the bureaucrats in Whitehall, etc. When you start passing things down the chain, a lot of people get lost in the system, their applications get lost, their paperwork gets lost. So I think not only do we need an overhaul of our processing system, not only overseas from Rwanda, but also root and branch overhaul of all of the bureaucratic structures in the UK that are stopping, the road, wheels hitting the road here.
Well, let us know what you think. Do you agree with Connor in the studio, or perhaps Justin Welby? You can email us at gbviews@gbnews.uk, and we've got lots more to come on that story. But let's move on, because you started by saying a little bit damning of the Conservatives, and Boris Johnson, extremely awkward headlines yet again about his conduct over lockdown, and now the Daily Telegraph lead with Johnson accused of instigating a drinks party. Of course, the recess ends tomorrow. It's going to be an an awkward week for the Prime Minister to navigate?
Oh, it's going to be incredibly amusing, Prime Minister's questions. I'm going to be sitting there with, big bowl of popcorn. He did break ministerial code if he is being found to lie to Parliament. And I think it is pretty incredulous if you're going to turn around and say a man who is running the country, who is, Eton educated, etc., didn't know he was at a party. Yes, admittedly, it was a pretty dismal party, and we can make all the excuses in the world of, everyone broke lockdown rules, but the man did set them. If he's going to repeatedly say I was not at it and then be found to be at multiple, if this is just the first fine of many to come, I don't think it's a particularly tenable position for him to stick around.
All right, really good to talk to you. Thanks, Conor. Really appreciate your time. Conor Tomlinson there, political commentator with Young Voices UK. And do let us know what you think about anything we've been talking about on the programme. gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Now it's 9 minutes past 6. Let's bring you up to date with the other stories making the headlines today.
Yeah, as we've been discussing, the Home Secretary has challenged critics of her plan to send migrants to Rwanda to come up with a better idea, writing a joint article in The Times with the Rwandan Foreign Minister, I should say, Priti Patel, reiterated that her controversial plans were bold and innovative. It's after the leader of the Church of England, Justin Welby, said the proposals were ungodly and raised serious ethical questions.
Boris Johnson is said to be getting ready to defend his premiership in front of Parliament this week. He's due to make a statement in the Commons once MPs return to Westminster. That'll be tomorrow after the Easter break. Well, the Prime Minister is expected to urge MPs to move on from partygate, insisting, we maybe have heard some of them this morning, that there are bigger issues to focus on.
Yeah. And the final COVID restriction will be lifted in Scotland from today. People will no longer legally have to wear face masks on public transport and in most indoor public spaces as the rule moves to guidance only. Prince Charles used his Easter address yesterday to pay tribute to the millions of Ukrainians forced to flee their homes following Russia's invasion, saying he was heartbroken by their plight.
Well, that happened as the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, along with their children, Prince George and Princess Charlotte, led members of the royal family for the annual Easter Sunday service at Windsor Castle.
Well, for more, let's speak with royal biographer and commentator Angela Levin, who joins us from Jerusalem. Good morning, Angela. Good to see you there. The Queen did not attend the Easter Sunday service, so hopefully we'll be able to see her soon, preferably for her Jubilee.
Yes, I think it's very sad. She's got these mobility problems. Some days she feels okay, and other days that she doesn't feel she can even move. And I think that it'd be very difficult to overcome this. And it's very concerning because if you don't move, the muscles get very weak. And so we just hope for the best that she can manage it. I think as well that the decision that we will only hear if she's going to attend any engagement will be on the day itself, and then she will be accompanied by someone else, does help. But I think it puts a tremendous load on Prince Charles, really, because he's got so much of his own engagements. He's got taken over masses of the Queen's engagement, and then not quite to know whether she's going to do it, and he has to be there or not. I think it's a very heavy load. Meanwhile, she does do very well with the remote conversations. It's very interesting that she enjoys the technology and talks to people and can feel that she's of use and still a monarch by doing that.
She's got a busy week, not alone a busy year to come. The palace, though, indicating over the weekend that the Queen may not confirm her attendance at events until, right up until the moment of when these events start. Are we sort of entering into a different era now?
Yeah, that's just what I said, that we won't know if she's going to turn up unless until the very last moment. And I think it is a different era. And I'm in two minds whether Prince Charles should actually be named regent now, and that means doing everything but actually not being the king, rather than actually this bitsy bit where we don't know whether the Queen's coming or whether she's not. And I think it's very difficult for the people because we're coming up to a time of huge celebration for her Platinum Jubilee. And if she's not going to be there, or people are not going to know she's going to be there until the very last moment, it somehow takes the excitement and the interest out of it.
Interesting, Angela. Can you just tell us a little bit more about if he were to be made regent, how that happens and what it means?
Well, what it means is that he does everything except have the title. Because I can't imagine that the Queen would stand down. He just takes the place of the Queen, and that means all the red boxes, and that means doing everything, making decisions. But he will, of course, do work with the Queen. She will just retain the title, but she won't be expected to do any of the things that we now expect of her. And the Prime Minister will talk to Prince Charles, and it just moves it over a bit. I think he's been working so hard on her behalf, and I know that actually the little bit of freedom that he and the Duchess of Cornwall have is very much enjoyed. But I think that there comes a time with the public that decisions like this have to be made.
It's been a very busy weekend for the extended royal family. Harry and Meghan making their trip to the UK, of course, the Invictus Games kicking off on Saturday as well. How do you think that's been managed? How sort of warm a reception did they both receive?
Well, I think it's a Marmite situation, where some people think they've been appalling and are taking advantage of the injured ex-military, to earn a lot of money from them. I also think that they can't possibly give full attention to what they're supposed to be doing about the Invictus Games if they are surrounded by umpteen cameras and people telling them to stand and to sit and to do that. I think it's quite easy for Meghan because she's used to this sort of thing, and she can smile and, she can act in every way. But Harry, I thought, was quite traumatized by it all. And at times he bowed his head. He found it all very, very emotional. He seemed extremely tense. And one time there were tears, and I wonder quite what that is really. But he can't act. When I interviewed him for his biography in 2018, he always says he wears his feelings, his heart on his sleeve. And I think this was a marvellous example of it, that, he wasn't actually playing up to the cameras because he can't do it. And I wonder, was he shocked by seeing the Queen after such a long time, because she's deteriorated a great deal recently in terms of physical energy and control. Was he feeling perhaps I've made a mistake? Was he feeling, my goodness, my memoirs are going to actually attack the family again when they come out later this year? I have got not an idea, but he didn't seem to be happy, Harry.
Not at all. Angela, really good to talk to you this morning. Thank you so much for joining us on this Easter Bank Holiday Monday. Angela Levine there, royal commentator.
Yeah, one thing we didn't mention there is maybe wearing his heart on his sleeve, but also his relationship very publicly. There was quite an embrace, a kiss between Harry and Meghan very publicly, which is, of course, is not behaviour we're that used to seeing. Maybe a very small peck on the balcony after a wedding ceremony. But they are a very different couple, and perhaps will have been pleasantly surprised that they haven't been... they've got more favourable comments in the press than perhaps they have done of late.
Yes, one would say so. GB Views at GB News, if you want to let us know what you think about that one. Stay with us. We'll be live in Scotland as the country ends its face mask rules. But before that, on Breakfast, let's get the weather.
So for the last day of the bank holiday, looking ahead, it's looking bright for many of us. A mix of sunshine and scattered showers. Let's look in the southwest, and we're going to see a mixture of sunny spells and scattered showers throughout Easter Monday morning. It's feeling fresher though. Temperatures around 13 degrees Celsius. Let's head over to the capital. There's going to be plenty of sunshine and dry weather for the London area and southeast England, with temperatures reaching about 14 Celsius by lunchtime. Let's head over to Wales. It's going to be a mixture of sunny spells and showers. They could be quite heavy towards the coast, feeling pleasant in the sunshine. In the Midlands, it's going to be mostly dry, but there are a few light showers possible, mainly to the north of Birmingham. Temperatures rising a little above average for the time of year.
Showers for northern England. Let's head there this morning too, on the heavy side from time to time. In between, there will be plenty of sunshine, feeling pleasant with light winds. Meanwhile, in Scotland, Orkney and Shetland, we'll see some early rain. Otherwise, much of the country will be bright with sunshine and showers. Breezy in the north and west, and in Northern Ireland, a brighter day compared to yesterday. There will be plenty of sunny spells, but also the risk of some showers too. Highs of around 12 degrees Celsius.
So through the day, most places are going to stay bright, but there will be some further scattered showers possible. And as we said, breezy in the northwest. That's how the weather's shaping up today.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you, or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
It is 6:20. Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast on this Easter Bank Holiday Monday with Rosie and Paul.
It's 20 minutes past 6. We're live across the UK on both your TV and your radio.
Still to come on today's programme, our reporter Ellie Costello will be on your doorstep in Essex, finding out how locals in Burnham-on-Crouch have been spending Easter.
And coming up after 7 o'clock, we're headed over to Warwick Castle to speak to the team entertaining families over the Easter break. We've been promised we're going to speak to a knight. And the director of Imagination, which I'm very interested in. Something we've been talking about that's already got the inbox going, and if you want to join in, gbviews at gbnews.uk. A lot of the papers are leading, the Daily Mail, for example, outcry over Welby attacks, saying that the asylum policy, Justin Welby, the Archbishop of Canterbury, sort of head of the Church of England, really criticised in very strong words, saying that the government's policy, new policy regarding Rwanda was ungodly. And a lot of you are saying, Dennis, very good morning to you, says the government have got it right, the archbishops have got it wrong. We're going to hear from the Archbishop of York a little bit later.
Yeah, Tom has been in touch as well. Morning to you, Tom. Welby's out of touch. His church is losing adherents in the UK. The global Anglican community are rejecting his leadership. He should focus on matters of faith, not politics, and focus on people in this country. People he's currently failing, says Tom.
And good morning to Jim, who says the Archbishop should stay out of politics, especially at Easter. He's out of touch with everyone except his woke friends. Maybe he should have focused on how the UK is helping Ukraine. Let us know what you think. GBviews at gbnews.uk. It was Paul's just been looking at our Twitter as well, at GBnews.
It is 6:22. The final coronavirus restrictions in Scotland have been lifted today as wearing face masks in public places and on public transport are no longer a legal requirement.
Now, although the restrictions have been removed, the Scottish Government still urges Scots to continue wearing masks.
It comes after Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon was reported to the police for not wearing a mask when visiting a shop in South Lanarkshire.
I think it was for a very brief amount of time. Let's find out the details and go to Scotland to speak to our Scotland reporter, Davy Donaldson. Very good morning to you, Davy. Before we go on to how the rules are changing, Nicola Sturgeon reported to the police. What do we actually know?
Yeah, I mean, what we've seen is we saw a tweet by Nicola Sturgeon herself where she was in a barber shop in East Kilbride near Glasgow, and she had not worn the mask for a couple of seconds. This is what she posted on her own Twitter feed and then put the mask on. However, there was some footage came out afterwards showing her mixing freely with people within the shop and no mask being worn at all. So, yeah, she's been reported for that, and a lot of people clearly very, very, very unhappy about, what's come out of this. Certainly the Scottish Conservatives say it's blatant hypocrisy. The Lib Dems have also had their say as well, saying she's not following her own rules. So, and you're not really surprised by the Lib Dems and the Conservative Party coming out and saying those things. So yeah, it's a police investigation. We'll find out more about that. But certainly, I mean, the timing of it couldn't really be any worse. The day before obviously the masks now become no longer law, just guidance, then this video emerges. So it certainly doesn't put the First Minister in a very, very good light at all.
Anecdotally, Davy, are people really sticking to the rules, and are they being, I mean, obviously in Nicola Sturgeon's case they've been enforced, but generally speaking, are the authorities on it?
Yeah, I think so. I think people are sticking to the rules to the main. Obviously, today we'll see a complete difference because people will decide no longer to wear a mask, as it's only guidance now they're allowed to do that. So I'm at Linlithgow train station. This is a busy commuter point for going to Glasgow or going east to Edinburgh. So it's interesting to see, and I've just been watching people coming and going, and I have to say it's probably about 50-50 in terms of people wearing masks. So some people will fully intend to keep wearing a mask. Others will think, what's the point? It's had its day, and we move on. I mean, we heard from Holmes yesterday, and he was saying, the time is right for the masks as a law to be lifted. But the Scottish Government still instructing people, as guidance to wear the mask. We've seen cases of COVID in Scotland reach 2,000. In numbers, so that's still very, very high. A lot of people will look at that and think, yeah, I think I'll just stick to wearing my mask and things like, public transport, public places. Others will share a very, very different view. Indeed, they'll decide to just not wear a mask and probably try and get some sort of normality back in their lives. But I think we've all had to deal with this. A lot of, obviously, bars and restaurants will be delighted that it's only guidance now. But again, I think you'll still find people in confined spaces like that. Some people will still want to wear a mask, others won't.
Davy, good to see you this morning. Thanks for that. That's our Scotland reporter, Davy Donaldson there. I've still noticed quite a few people still wearing deciding to wear face masks of their own volition.
Yeah,
in England.
Yeah, definitely in England. But I was surprised. It's really easy to forget that the rules are different in different parts of the UK. I mean, I was reporting from Euston just before the bank holiday weekend. We've got a little bit to come later on sort of the chaos of what the travel's been, but that was sort of preempting it. And I was surprised because at the stations it said, particularly Euston, where you'd get the train up to Scotland, you've got to have a mask if you're travelling to Scotland. I thought, oh gosh, I can't believe those rules are sort of still in place there. Obviously that all changes today, but people do have them on the tube. I
think because cases have crept up recently, so they're still sticking with face masks. Some people, they feel better, don't they? Especially in enclosed spaces. So that's the rules that are changing in Scotland, or at least the last remaining COVID rules. Stay with us. We'll be taking a look through today's newspapers with Andrew Walker and Nabila Ramdani in just a minute.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes & Co.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Breakfast on GB News with Rosie and Paul. Hope you're having a good Easter bank holiday Monday. Let's bring you up to date with today's top stories this morning.
The Home Secretary's challenged critics of her plan to send migrants to Rwanda to come up with a better idea. Writing a joint article in The Times with the Rwandan Foreign Minister, Priti Patel reiterated that her controversial plans were bold and innovative. It's after the leader of the Church of England, Justin Welby, said the proposals were ungodly and raised serious ethical questions.
Elsewhere this morning, Boris Johnson is said to be getting ready to defend his premiership in front of Parliament this week. He's due to make a statement in the Commons once MPs return to Westminster after the Easter break. The PM is expected to urge MPs to move on from partygate, insisting there are bigger issues to focus on.
The final COVID restrictions are going to be lifted in Scotland from today. People will no longer legally have to wear face masks on public transport and in most indoor public spaces, as the rule moves instead to guidance.
And thousands of volunteers who joined the COVID vaccination programme have now got permanent jobs in the NHS. The Health Secretary, Sajid Javid, says it's a positive boost to the health service, which is struggling with staff shortages and a huge backlog caused by the pandemic.
It's 6:30. Let's go through the papers now. We're joined in the studio by journalist and broadcaster Nabila Ramdani and columnist and commentator Andre Walker. Very good morning to both of you. Let's start with this fallout. So we get the policy from Priti Patel, the new idea about sending people to Rwanda, and then Justin Welby uses his Easter message to slam it. He calls it ungodly, and now he's being criticised.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think Justin Welby's a great bloke, particularly because he's pledged that he's going to allow asylum seekers to live in his £27 million library in his official residence. Oh, sorry, he actually hasn't done that, nor has he surrendered his tax-exempt status. It's amazing to see these people take to the TV, slag off the taxpayers for not supporting asylum seekers when they themselves have a tax-exempt status. But anyway, look, this guy's presiding over a failing institution. Nobody goes to his church anymore. All of the bishops are picked by the government, which I think is part of the Church of England's problem. I'm a Catholic. We don't go in for any of that sort of thing. But look, Priti Patel has said that he should come up with a better idea. Well, as I say, I've come up with two. He could let people move into his £27 million personal library, and he could get rid of his tax-exempt status. Those are two things that I believe that Welby could do. He's not going to do either of them, though, is he? And actually, there's something I think very serious about this. Easter Sunday is supposed to be the most important day in the Christian calendar. It's supposed to be more important than Christmas Day, and in fact it was used for a political platform. And I think that just shows just how lost the Church of England has got. And the final point I'd make is this.
I just just wonder, is this story about the Church of England or about the views that he gave?
Well, I think if you are the official state religion of a country and you can't manage to be the most popular religion in that country, then you've got a significant problem with your own management of it. But look, these guys are just people who love getting involved in politics and whatever. I'll tell you something. Do you know, I don't know if viewers are in this position, but I've been over the channel on a ferry when it gets really, really choppy. And I will tell you, it's one of the most dangerous sea lanes in the world. The idea that we're going to continue to allow people to go on dinghies crossing when it's incredibly dangerous. We don't know how many people were killed in the Mediterranean because the people smugglers, to allow that to continue over the channel just to make yourself feel better as a religious leader, I think is really pretty despicable.
What the Archbishop of York has said is there a strategy instead that would attack then instead the people smugglers rather than the people being smuggled?
Yeah, well, but the point is, we are the people smugglers. I mean, if you look at Libya, what happens is the so-called people smugglers get the guys, 10, 15 miles off the coast, and we as European navies do the rest of the work. It's the Royal Navy that's escorting people across the channel. You know, the reality is we have not got a system, but what we've done, and, you know, I've spent a lot of time in Ukraine recently, what we've done is we've mixed up two things fundamentally. People in Ukraine do not want to move to Britain permanently. They want to go back to Ukraine. What we've done is we've forgotten that genuine refugees actually just want to seek safe sanctuary in the nearest country and then go back as soon as possible. Most of the people that we've got over are economic migrants. Nothing wrong with that, but they need to be processed as economic migrants.
Yeah, although I would say the war in Syria has been going on for some time, and that doesn't look like it's going to end anytime soon. Syria is one of the places where a lot of these people come from.
Yeah, I get that, but, you know, funnily enough, I've also spent a fair amount of time in Kosovo. If you look at the fight between the Serb army and the KLA, principally people wanted to go to Albania simply because that's where they could speak the language and whatever. When I was on the Ukrainian-Polish border, and I have to say to you, you had these young women whose husbands had all been conscripted to fight with young children. They really wanted to be in Poland. And you know, with all of this immigration, you know, you have to cite and you have to make a word of caution on all of this. You know, Krakow needs 30 new primary schools to be built from scratch by September, and we're worrying about moving everybody to the United Kingdom. It's just a fallacy.
Nabila, listening to this, what part of that analysis, if any, do you have sort of sympathy with?
Well, the Daily Mail goes on about this story as well, and he actually reports on ministers rounding on the Archbishop of Canterbury, whom they accuse of using a politicised Easter sermon to criticise the Rwanda plan. Now, is it the job of a spiritual leader to be seen as a political, conveying political messages? I should think so. I think we expect our spiritual leaders to moralise effectively, and that's exactly what he's done yesterday. He gave a moral and ethical point of view on how we should be treating refugees and migrants and humanity in general, and a lot of people thought that was commendable. You know, obviously the Archbishop of Canterbury is by definition an establishment figure, so he's not expected to come up with an anti-establishment view, but he's not the only one to criticise the Rwanda plan. There's a whole host of opposition politicians, including human rights organisations and charities, who have condemned the plan, including conservative politicians who are asking how the British government is going to safeguard human rights in all this.
But Priti Patel's point is, what's your plan?
Well, he's not a politician, but he can have an opinion. And I think they are very competent people. It's not the first time we're dealing with migration. I mean, it's the history of humanity movement of people. And there were specific examples in the past. I mean, Australia tried this and it didn't work out. So it begs the question as why it
reduced the total number of deaths to zero of people coming into the country. But look, here's my question to Justin Welby and indeed everybody else. Right, we get that Justin Welby is probably a Labour voter. We get that he is supportive of the opposition. We get that he believes in uncontrolled immigration.
Your analysis is
well, look, he's not going to come on GBNews starting to say that he wants tough immigration curbs, is he? So I say that that's uncontrolled immigration. But what makes that ungodly? What is it about Rwanda that's ungodly?
Because he's saying you're subcontracting out your responsibility. You're not even having the process putting the process in Rwanda to review asylum. He's saying that the responsibility has been subcontracted out to Rwanda.
I mean, where you do the processing, I mean, I don't know if it matters, but the reality is, I've seen so many people just effectively slate Rwanda. I mean, we go on about how we shouldn't be talking down African countries.
To be fair,
we go on about the way that we, sometimes we can be racist against black countries.
No, but it's not the most stable.
It is not ungodly.
The most safe country.
Rwanda is now top of the league in Africa for cutting red tape. It's now got one of the world's leading airlines in Rwanda. It wants to follow on from Dubai and make itself the Dubai
human
of Africa.
Rights track record?
Well, yes, but look, I mean, the ethnic violence that took place in Rwanda is a significant amount of time ago now. And let's remember, we live in a country, the United Kingdom, that had significant human rights problems in Northern Ireland.
Do you think it's a policy that's actually going to work?
Yeah, I think so. I think so, because of the very simple premise at the bottom of all this. We have got confused in between economic migration and refugee status. When you
say who's got confused?
Well, I think the whole country, haven't we? Because what we see time and time again is people who want to move to Britain to get a better life, claiming that they're in danger, and it's simply not true. Now, look, as far as I'm concerned, if I was about to be a victim of genocide, say, in Ukraine, and somebody offered me to spend some time in Rwanda, I'd be perfectly happy. If, however, what I want to do is move to the United Kingdom to get a better job and earn more money, I'd be furious about going to Rwanda, and that's the very point.
Yeah, no, I'll take that point. But the Permanent Secretary to the Home Office, Matthew Rycroft, has said that the policy had a high cost and would only be value for money if it did reduce the number of channel crossings, and there's no guarantee. So this is a long shot. Well, admittedly, maybe the only shot, but a long shot.
Well, look, Priti Patel, I don't think has been particularly great in the Home Office, but there does have to be a process. And I mean, what we saw going on in the Mediterranean was an absolute horrendous disaster. But the reason that it kept happening was we were encouraging the people traffickers by allowing people to stay in the countries they arrived in. I will tell you, we will create a humanitarian crisis, which, by the way, will be ungodly, genuinely ungodly, if we continue to allow the crossing of the channel on dinghies.
Priti Patel says come up with a better plan. Well, morning to Deborah, who says we must sort all of this out with France. What is wrong with the French? They must take some responsibility. If you've got a different plan, let us know. gbviews@gbnews.uk. Let's move on and look at the front page of the Daily Telegraph. Johnson accused of instigating a drinks party. An 18-day parliamentary recess comes to an end tomorrow. It's going to be a bit of a bumpy ride for Boris Johnson.
Well, and rightly so. I mean, I've said this multiple times on GB News, but we've never met before, so I'll say it again. My mother died of lung cancer during the coronavirus lockdown, and at the same time as her nieces and nephews were unable to visit her in hospital, the people making the rule were getting thoroughly wellied in Downing Street. I don't think that is an appropriate situation. And what really annoys me more than anything else is the way that we continually have heard from people in Downing Street saying, we believed it was legal. No. You believed you would get away with it on a technicality. So effectively, whilst you're refusing Loretta Walker's relatives to go and visit her on a deathbed, you are at the same time trying to find ways to wriggle out of the rules that you yourself brought in. I think it's disgraceful, but it has to be said. I've got a funny feeling about this, and my feeling is, you look at the Sturgeons of this world, you look at the Keir Starmers of this world, these people loved the lockdown, and they would have had it for far, far longer. The stupid thing about this country at the moment is that we are led by an absolute hypocrite, but at least he's a hypocrite rather than a genuine believer in this nonsense policy.
Yeah.
Nabila, has he wriggled out of it?
I don't think so. I think he'll have to come up with a very clear narrative about what's actually happened, because he keeps changing the goalposts. That, sometimes first start. Now there's no discussion about whether it happened or not. I mean, there happened to be a photographer on the spot as well, so there's no dispute about the breaching of the rules per se. But we keep hearing conflicting stories from him, whether he actually attended those parties or whether he just happened to be there. There were parties or indeed.
Well, he says, I didn't know I was breaking the rules. That's what he said in that statement last week. I didn't know. I'm sorry, I was fine, but I didn't know I was breaking the rules.
Well, I mean, recollections may vary, as the Queen would say, but I think he will it lead to his resignation in the long terms? I don't think so. I think...
but should it?
To be fair, I think, these issues shouldn't be brushed under the carpet. He will have to come up with a strong and sincere explanation of what's happened, because there have simply been too many people who have died and suffered in so many ways from lockdowns. And I think, people at the very least would expect some amend to be made.
If he makes that explanation, will you believe whatever he says?
Well, would anybody believe politicians in general? I think that's
But it's particularly Boris Johnson, isn't it? Because the narrative is, as you mentioned, with how he spent lockdown has changed, and then a little bit more evidence comes out and we get a slightly different version of the story each time.
Well, the point about Boris Johnson is he always managed to wriggle out of situations. But is there anybody waiting in the wings to take over if he was to, leave? Or I don't think so.
Andre, do you think he should go?
No, I don't, simply because of the issue of him being a hypocrite rather than a true believer. But then again, if we look right across the United Kingdom, and on GBNews, by the way, we like talking about every part of the country. You look at Nicola Sturgeon, accidentally walked into a shop yesterday without a mask on. She's broken the rules a couple of times. You look at Michelle
Is that a fair comparison?
No, not really.
It's not drinking alcohol.
No, I understand that, but if you go round to a lot of these leaders, particularly the ones who are most zealous, none of them are white and white. I mean, OK, Mark Drakeford in Wales never broke the rules, but on the very day he was arguing for social distancing to be brought in as law, he was doing his Diwali dance with about 20 people. Michelle O'Neill, because let's not forget our friends in Northern Ireland, the Deputy First Minister of Northern Ireland, attended the funeral of somebody from the IRA Army Council, 2,000 people not wearing a mask. Blatantly illegal. Her argument, by the way, was that she'll only listen to the Irish police and they weren't present.
So are you basically saying it was impossible to keep the rules? So let's not criticise people for breaking them.
No, I'm saying that our leaders didn't believe in it. There's a rival to GBNews that has a presenter, I'm not going to say the name, has a presenter who has been taking to the airwaves, slagging everybody off for not wearing a mask, who hosted a birthday party illegally during the lockdown. I mean, look, the level of hypocrisy from people is absolutely dire. 2,000 people, 3,000 people at a funeral, and you are the Deputy First Minister of a country that's literally saying that should be a crime.
Andre, thank you very much.
Yep.
Andre Walker and Nabila Ramdani. They'll be joining us again in about an hour's time to go through some more stories in the papers. Good morning to Kevin, Steve, David. We'll get to your emails shortly. You can join the conversation as well. gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Yep, let's bring you up to date with the rest of today's top stories. Pay rises are falling well behind inflation. New research has found out of 1,000 managers questioned, half the number of companies were found to be giving basic pay awards, whilst the other half reported no plans to raise wages at all. The Chartered Management Institute says workers are seeking the extra financial boost because of the cost of living crisis, but some were sent away empty-handed.
Nearly 1 in 10 parents say they are very likely to need to use a food bank in the next 3 months. It's 1.3 million who are struggling to feed their families. 88% saying their monthly food shop has increased in price. It's research by Deliveroo that shows 1/3 of all parents have skipped one or more meals to keep up with essential costs.
Volunteers are being lined up to drive ambulances as the backlog of patients continues to grow. It's part of a pilot scheme due to launch next month. The London Ambulance Service says volunteers will be trained and equipped and offer support to emergency calls in their area.
Right, it is 6:45. A very good morning to you. I hope you're enjoying it's been a beautiful bank holiday weekend. We're going to find out how you have been celebrating, because now it's time for On Your Doorstep. Today we're in the sailing town of Burnham-on-Crouch.
Yeah, our southeast of England reporter Ellie Costello joins us from there now. Ellie, what is happening in that part of Essex?
Happy Easter Monday to you. Hope you had a lovely Easter. We are in Burnham-on-Crouch today, which is a beautiful rural town in Essex. As you said, Rosie, it's famous for its sailing and its yachting. We're actually not very far from the river here, but I brought you to the old town. This has been here since the 1500s, perhaps what you don't think of when you think of Essex. And I wanted to show you this incredible thatched cottage. Look at how historic this is. So we have to go inside, I think, and chat to the person who owns it. So this is number 3 of the thatched cottages. Good morning. Hello. You are live on TV and on radio with Paul and Rosie. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Fiona Clegg and I own these holiday cottages.
Amazing. Can we come inside? Can we have a closer look? Very exciting. Watch your head there. It's quite low. Here we go.
Yes, it was much lower than that, but I did the renovation and managed to dig down 2 feet and gain a few inches.
So this is absolutely incredible. But first of all, I need to ask you about your accent, because you're not from Essex, are you?
No, I moved down from Edinburgh. I brought up in the borders, but been here 25 years. Apparently, I still have an accent.
You do. You haven't lost your accent, have you? And what do you like about Essex, then? You like being
I think
here?
it's very friendly. I used to work in London, so very commutable to London, but it's a lovely rural setting here in Burnham-on-Crouch. Love it.
And it's not too far from London. It's also not far for you to get home either.
No, Stansted's only an hour's flight up the road, so can be up and see my sisters and shopping in Edinburgh at 10 in the morning.
Yeah. So tell us about this incredible thatched cottage, because look at these exposed beams.
Yes.
This is so historical, isn't it?
Yes. Well, I lived next door, and I wanted to, when the lady who had been here, she actually came here after World War II. They came for a fortnight, stayed 46 years.
Oh.
But when they left, I wanted to buy the cottages and preserve them, because they could have been knocked down because they weren't listed. Because I had given up my job in London, I decided I would do the project management, but then also I thought I would do the labouring with my friend Sarah and oversee the whole thing. So I've tried to bring out all the original features which were covered up as I could, but at the same time make it modern.
It is absolutely beautiful, and you've actually won awards for your work, haven't you? You're being humble, but you are celebrated in this town.
They won a preservation award for the historic renovation, and then we won the Best in Essex self-catering accommodation. So they are award-winning cottages.
So if people want to come and stay in your award-winning cottages and come and visit Burnham-on-Crouch, what can they look forward to? Why would you visit this area?
A lot of people come because they like to walk. It's a beautiful place to do that. If you're a sailor, obviously we're famous for sailing. People come here to see friends and family. It's quite nice to have a different type of accommodation. And quite a few people come from abroad. Next weekend we've got Germans coming.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. Well, I think I want to stay. It sounds absolutely wonderful. I can hear the bird song. I think we should go and appreciate that.
I absolutely love the birds in the garden. And yesterday I sat and counted them with children that were here looking for eggs. And we found 14 different types of birds.
Wow. So yes, it's a fantastic place to come for bird watching. So let's go see if we can listen to the birds outside. It's so rural here. It's definitely not what you think about when you think about Essex, is it? It's just beautiful. So let's just take this scenery in. We can see a bit of the thatched cottage as well.
Yes, well, this wall here is quite interesting, because that actually used to be a chimney which hadn't been original on the end of the house next door.
Oh, amazing. So you have literally preserved everything, haven't you?
Yes, my friend Sarah and I, we cleaned every single brick and made this retaining wall, because we had to dig down, because the cottages, they didn't have any foundation, and we had to dig down to keep them from being damp.
Incredible. Well, Fiona, we don't have very long with you, but I did want to ask you about something that we're talking about on the programme, which is obviously the Ukraine situation. Very, very sad. You are doing something wonderful for the Ukrainian people, aren't you? Tell us a little bit about that.
I've got 2 people who lived in Kiev coming. One of them's been given their right to travel, but her partner hasn't yet, so waiting for that. I own another historic property, because obviously once I won an award here I considered myself a champion builder. And so I acquired what was the original cottage hospital in the town, and then the maternity hospital in the town, and that is now 4 flats, and they are going to be going there.
It's absolutely incredible. So we've got a Ukrainian couple from Kyiv who will be coming in the next few days, we hope.
Yes.
Fiona, I think you are wonderful. I think what you've done here is fantastic, just preserving the history in this town, and also wonderful what you're doing for that young Ukrainian couple as well. Thank you for having us this morning.
Thank you for coming.
And Paul and Rosie, stay with me because I'm going to be going around Burnham-on-Crouch today, speaking to local people about issues that matter to them.
Great stuff, Ellie. Thank you very much for that, and thank you to Fiona as well, showing us a bit of Essex, and I'm from Essex myself. Often it gets a bad rep. I call it a sexism, but there are certain little parts of Essex that we kind of want to keep secret because we don't want everyone going there. Beautiful Burnham-on-Crouch.
Oh, well, then that's what we've sent Ellie to do. So maybe don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone where Ellie's been this morning. That was beautiful, though, that gorgeous, gorgeous exposed beams and really crouching down. A little bit of a headache, probably, literally, if you're over 6 foot, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. And possibly even 5 foot because she had to drop the floor, didn't she, to get in there? So
amazing.
Fascinating stuff. It is 8 minutes to 7 now. Easter is one of the most important celebrations in the Christian calendar. And away from the chocolate eggs, many people use it as a time of reflection.
Well, our reporter Anna Riley has been speaking to the Archbishop of York about what Easter means to him.
Easter is central to the Christian faith and offers a message of new beginnings, as well as being a time for family, friends, rest and relaxation. The Archbishop of York, Stephen Cottrell, leads the northern province of the Church of England. At York Minster, Stephen shared his Easter message of hope and rebirth, and his belief that with the ongoing war in Ukraine and a cost of living crisis, that the meaning of Easter is relevant now more than ever.
There is such horrors in our world. We've lived through 2 years of COVID. We're just coming out of it. And then we see, for the first time in most of our lifetimes, something we thought we would never see, war in Europe. The terrible, terrible invasion of Ukraine and all that's followed from that. We're seeing a cost of living crisis in our own country. There is a refugee crisis across the world. There is a climate emergency. These are huge things, and it's very, very easy to feel hopeless. The message of Easter, again, is a message that there is hope, that these things don't have the last word, that it's possible to live differently, to start again. And therefore I hope and pray that the message of Easter will speak into all these situations. First of all, for those in the greatest need and the greatest despair, knowing they're not alone, but for all of us to raise our sights and lift our vision.
The Archbishop thinks this is the point for Britain and the world to come together to support one another through dark times.
I want to live in a world where everyone has a decent wage and a decent income, and I'm really, really concerned for the poorest in our society, let alone across the world. And then, of course, I want to live in a country, I think we all do actually. It's amazing how British people want to welcome in Ukrainian refugees. There's been a huge outpouring of goodwill and welcome. That's good. I want to live in that sort of a country. But there are refugees from Yemen, refugees from Syria, in just as much need, fleeing similar conflict and violence. This could be a great wake-up call for our nation, in which we reset our compass to be better than we are at the moment.
And this is what people visiting York Minster said the meaning of Easter is for them.
Chance to start over, I think, but a bit like a clean slate. And everybody does New Year resolutions, but I think Easter's the time when you just think about what could have been, what might have been, and how you can make it better.
It's a time when the church really comes together to celebrate the resurrection.
Time off from regular routine.
It's a kind of a renewal, kind of a spiritual spring to me. Just trying to get back to spiritual beliefs and start over and start the year afresh.
It's about life, resurrection, new hope.
So, however you've spent the Easter break, here at the Minster there's a message of hope and unity for whatever the future may bring. Anna Riley, GB News, York.
And, well, unfortunately, some of the Easter messaging for the Church of England has been accused of being politicised. There's really stinging criticism, particularly of the Archbishop of Canterbury, across the pages this morning. Stay with us, because we'll have more on the government's clash with Justin Welby after the weather. Last day of the bank holiday. Looking ahead, it's looking bright for many of us. A mix of sunshine and scattered showers. Let's look in the southwest, and we're going to see a mixture of sunny spells and scattered showers throughout Easter Monday morning. It's feeling fresher though. Temperatures around 13 degrees Celsius. Let's head over to the capital. There's going to be plenty of sunshine and dry weather for the London area and southeast England, with temperatures reaching about 14 Celsius by lunchtime. Let's head over to Wales. There's going to be a mixture of sunny spells and showers. They could be quite heavy towards the coast, feeling pleasant in the sunshine. In the Midlands, it's going to be mostly dry, but there are a few light showers possible, mainly to the north of Birmingham. Temperatures rising a little above average for the time of year.
Showers for northern England. Let's head there this morning too, on the heavy side from time to time. In between, there will be plenty of sunshine, feeling pleasant with light winds. Meanwhile, in Scotland, Orkney and Shetland, we'll see some early rain. Otherwise, much of the country will be bright with sunshine and showers. Breezy in the north and west, and in Northern Ireland, a brighter day compared to yesterday. There will be plenty of sunny spells, but also the risk of some showers too. Highs of around 12 degrees Celsius.
So through the day, most places are going to stay bright, but there will be some further scattered showers possible. And as we said, breezy in the northwest. That's how the weather's shaping up today.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you, or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Very good morning to you. It is GB News Breakfast. Senior government figures hit back at the Archbishop of Canterbury after he used an Easter sermon to attack the government's new asylum plan.
A very good morning. It's 7 o'clock on Monday, the 18th of April, last day of the bank holiday. This is Breakfast on GB News with Rosie and Paul.
Yeah, we're live across your TV, your radio and online. Here's what's leading the news this morning.
Senior ministers have clashed with the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, last night after he used an Easter sermon to attack the government's plan to send migrants to Rwanda. He argued that the plan was against Christian teachings, but ministers say it will tackle traffickers and save lives.
Elsewhere this morning, Boris Johnson is facing fresh calls for resignation as new revelations emerge of a November 2020 party in which the Prime Minister allegedly arrived and started pouring drinks. The PM will face the Commons tomorrow and is expected to apologise for breaking the COVID rules.
And the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge led yesterday's Easter Sunday service in Windsor after the Queen said she would not be attending due to health issues. Well, that comes ahead of the Queen's 96th birthday this week.
Remember, you can join in any of our discussions by emailing gbviews@gbnews.uk or you can tweet us at gbnews. Let's start with our top story this morning. Senior ministers have hit back at the Archbishop of Canterbury after he used an Easter Sunday service to attack the government's asylum plan.
Well, the new plan will see tens of thousands of migrants who come to the UK through irregular routes given then a one-way ticket to Rwanda to claim asylum there.
In his intervention, the Archbishop Justin Welby branded the strategy opposite to the nature of God. The sentiment was echoed by the Archbishop of York, who said the policy was depressing and distressing.
Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Minister of State for Brexit Opportunities, countered that by saying the aim of the government's policy was to do good and that it would make it harder for crime to prosper.
Another minister told the Mail that it would be ungodly if the government did not take action to curb people smuggling, adding that the policy had gone down well across the country.
Well, let's find out more. Joining us now is Natalie Elficki, Conservative Member of Parliament for Dover. A very good morning to you. Look, Priti Patel is saying, if you don't like this plan, come up with a better one. Had you come up with a plan, would it have been this one?
Well, I think this is part of a package of measures that the government have brought in over the last week, and it's absolutely clear that a new approach is needed. The numbers are going up and up across the channel on this illegal route of entry. People in my constituency of Dover and Deal are demanding action. People across the country are demanding action, and it's vital that some is taken.
Is it ungodly?
I think what's ungodly are people forcing people, putting people into unsafe craft and them going across the channel, across the world's busiest shipping lane. Lives are not just put at risk every day in this way. Lives have been sadly lost. So it's absolutely vital. Indeed, it is our responsibility to bring an end to this risk of life of people dying in the English Channel in the hands of these evil people smugglers.
Does this policy, though, actually target the right people that, as you described, the evil people smugglers?
What this policy is designed to do is to break the business model. At the moment, the people smugglers get paid on delivery. They get paid in part by getting people to make this journey, and they get the final payment when people arrive on our shores. And the reality at the moment is that as soon as someone has set foot here in the White Cliffs, then it's extremely difficult for them to be removed. And what this policy is doing is it's saying to people who are inclined to pay people smugglers, don't bother. If you want to come to the UK, you are welcome to apply through a safe and legal route to work, to study and to seek refuge. It's not the right thing to do to pay people smugglers to go this unlawful and dangerous route where lives are put at risk. So don't do it. Apply the right way.
So if you're an asylum seeker from, say, Iran, which is one of the countries where a lot of these people trying to cross the channel comes from, what is the safe and legal route that they should follow then to apply for asylum in the UK?
Well, people who are seeking asylum can apply in a number of ways. But what we've seen across the channel, and I think the Home Secretary and her French counterpart have said this on countless occasions, the majority of people who are coming into our country across this particular route are people who they have designated to be economic migrants, people who are coming into this country who are already safe in France and many other countries before France, and so have no need to get into that flimsy dinghy in the first place, have no need to pay the people smugglers and shouldn't be doing so. They should be seeking refuge in France if they are in need of refuge.
Natalie,
and many other countries before France. And France do provide that safe place of refuge for people who are there, and many other countries, as of course does the UK.
Yeah, but what is the legal route for someone to apply to asylum in the UK if they're coming from a country like Iran?
Well, there are countless ways in which people seek refuge, and that depends on the route in which they are coming at, as you know. And what we know across this particular channel route is that by very, very large numbers, about 70% of people who are estimated to take this route are what are classified by the French and UK authorities as economic migrants. So it's really, really important that we say to people, if you want to work, you're very welcome to apply to work and study in the UK, but you've got to take the safe and legal routes. And this is not a safe and legal route. And we've seen in relation to the many, many programmes that have been set up around the world that the UK takes part in resettlement, that actually if you're in genuine need of assistance, then the UK is there and is welcoming. The UK is one of the world leaders in the resettlement programmes around the globe, and it's absolutely vital that those are the routes that are taken, working with the United Nations Refugee Council and other aid agencies in those places where it's unsafe to be.
I know that you've said the UK is welcoming. Justin Welby's taken a lot of flack for his criticism, but his words, I have to say, really echo some of the condemnation we've seen from other groups. The United Nations said that this policy was unacceptable, a breach of international law. A whole coalition of charities and campaign groups said it was shamefully cruel. Why are they wrong?
Well, this is a policy where people will be provided with a safe place of refuge, which is really important. It's a place where people have said that there were work opportunities, and Rwanda has been clear that it wants to welcome people. And the United Nations and other places have also, has said to Rwanda, can you help? And Rwanda has helped with other cases of people who are migrating from other countries. So Rwanda has experience in this. It has capacity, it has opportunity, and it wants to help people set up a new life in Rwanda. So that seems to me to be a really important point, that people will be given the opportunity to set up a new life. They will be supported. They'll be supported by the British taxpayer. This is an extension of our responsibilities. It's absolutely vital that we make sure that this is done in a responsible and sensible way. But what I'm really clear about is that we cannot allow the channel situation to continue, where we have lives lost and loss of life on a very serious basis now across the channel, and where we've seen the numbers go from under 300 in 2018 to nearly 30,000 last year, and expected to over double that this year, is unsustainable, and it's absolutely the wrong thing to do to allow this to continue.
OK, you've made your case really clear. Thank you very much for speaking to us this morning here on Breakfast on GB News. Lots of you getting in touch. Please do continue to do that. GB Views at GB News. Do you agree with the government, Priti Patel, or the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby? Let us know why.
It is 8 minutes past 7. Prince Charles used his Easter address yesterday to pay tribute to the millions of Ukrainians forced to flee their homes following Russia's invasion, saying he was heartbroken by their plight.
Well, that came as the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, along with their children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, we can see them there, led members of the royal family for their annual Easter Sunday service at Windsor Castle.
Well, joining us now is author and former Home Office Minister Norman Baker. Good morning to you, Norman. How is your Easter?
Morning. Very well, thank you very much. Very good.
Yeah, Prince William.
That was brief. Did you have roast lamb? Did you have an Easter egg? Go to church?
Well, to be honest with you, I did quite a lot of work, and I also, on Sundays, run 3 radio shows for my local FM station, music shows. So I was doing that as normal yesterday.
Good, so it was busy. The Queen didn't have the Easter that we anticipated. She wasn't at the Easter service. This perhaps is setting a bit of a gear change for the capacity she's got to do public arrangements. Missing Easter would have been quite painful for her.
Well, look, I mean, the Queen is clearly not very well and suffering, I think, from post-COVID symptoms. She is 95. She's 96. I think it's on Thursday this week. That's a very severe age, and it's not surprising she can't do what she used to do. But we have, in fact, now got a regency in all but name. The Queen is doing very little in terms of public engagements. We're talking about light duties. I understand, in fact, that those light duties are very light indeed. And I don't think she's been out really, apart from on one occasion since October. So what's happening there is effectively that we now have Prince Charles and Prince William stepping up and undertaking the Queen's duties, and that's where we're at.
I'm wondering why they haven't just made it official and made him regent.
Well, I mean, it's a complicated matter making someone regent, and I don't think that would be something that the Queen would personally favour. I mean, she took an oath in 1952 to serve her country, through thick and thin, as it were, and I think she would see regency as a reneging of that premise. So, there's no need to go down that particular route. I mean, we have an arrangement where the Queen is still head of state, and other members of the royal family are stepping up to fill the gap and undertake works which she would have done before. When it comes to future events, I think we'll see more of Prince Charles and Prince William and a bit less of the Queen for the time being.
William and Kate seem to be sort of used as the safe option. How risky is this time for the monarchy?
They are the safe option because quite clearly we've seen a lot of damage to the royal family in recent times. We've seen the whole Prince Andrew saga, which I think has done immense damage to the reputation of the royal family. We've seen Harry and Meghan, who are effectively semi-detached, behaving like John and Yoko over in America. William and Kate are seen as a safe option, but it is a risky time for the royal family. There's tremendous respect for the Queen personally from all sections of society, including those who are Republican-minded. On a personal basis, I think she's done her best. That loyalty and respect doesn't, I'm afraid, transfer to Prince Charles, who comes with baggage to the throne. At the moment, he's being investigated, him and his foundation, by the police as a consequence, actually, of my reference to the police for the allegation that his foundation's been involved in selling honours, contrary to the 1925 Honours Act. And, of course, there's a lot more baggage that Prince Charles has got as well. There's spider letters when he was to interfere with ministers and go beyond his duties and so on. So there's a great deal that Prince Charles has, which I think the Queen doesn't have. And I think it will be a difficult time for the royal family when the Queen goes.
But he is still seen in a slightly more favourable light than maybe 20 years ago.
Well, I think I'm not sure that's entirely true, to be honest with you. I think that Camilla's probably seen in a more favourable light than she was 20 years ago. And remember that there was a promise made at that point that she would not be Queen, that she would be Princess Consort. Now, clearly Prince Charles is very keen that that should not be the case, and the Queen herself has given some sort of endorsement to Camilla that she should be Queen, but that's contrary to what was said 20 years ago. And remember that the context then was outrage with Prince Charles for the way he had treated Princess Diana, and outrage that he was carrying on an affair at the same time as getting married. So that's still there in the public memory, and that still has to resonate, I think, with people, and will make it difficult for Charles. Another mark on his ledger, which is difficult for him to deal with.
This weekend, Harry and Meghan have been in town. The analysis from the Times supplement, it was a very slick flying visit to Europe. Was it a success?
Well, I think so. I mean, Harry was in his own territory. The Invictus Games is something which he began and which I think he feels very much at home with. I think he genuinely wants to help people in that situation, and he probably felt it'd be a very easy event. The fact that it took place in The Hague rather than in the UK was probably easier for him. I have to say that his alleged concerns about security in the UK were frankly a bit bizarre. I would have thought, frankly, that someone is safer in the UK than they are in the US when people have got guns in every corner.
Norman, just before we let you go, you are a former Home Office Minister. We were just wondering what your thoughts were on the government's relationship with Rwanda, this new programme that they're bringing in.
Well, I have to say, I think it's inhumane, and I think it's un-British in nature. We've been very open to the Ukrainians coming in, but it seems that people from other areas of the world who are subject to torture and who are fleeing oppression are not to be welcomed in the same way. Look, I mean, there's a system in place for a long time where people who come over here are, in a sense, innocent until proved guilty. They are assessed when they come over here. If they are genuine asylum seekers, genuine refugees, then they are brought into the country and allowed to stay. If they are not, they need to be removed. And that's the way it should work. And the problem that has occurred in recent years has been the failure of the Home Office to deal with people quickly. If people were processed very quickly and that basic fact established, whether they are refugees or economic migrants, then that would take a lot of the heat out of the matter. That's the answer, by the way, to Priti Patel, who says, what's the alternative? But what she's put forward, frankly, is to remove people in a rather callous way to a country which has got a poor human rights record. It doesn't make me very proud to be British this morning.
Norman, really good to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us. That is author and former Home Office Minister Norman Baker joining us on GB News. Let us know what you think about what he had to say there. Is it un-British, this programme to send immigrants to Rwanda, GBViews at gbnews.uk.
Yeah, that was quite strong to say. It doesn't make me feel proud to be British. Priti Patel saying, if you don't like this plan, come up with another one. Well, what would you suggest? John's got in touch. Very good morning. Says, I agree with the plan put forward by Priti Patel. Something has to be done to stop illegal immigration. It's ridiculous to suggest these people are fleeing war zones when they're coming from the safe country of France. We cannot go on allowing this type of immigration. As Paul said, let us know what you think, and we've got lots more to come on this. Right now, it's just gone 7:15. Let's get you up to date with the day's top stories.
Yep, the Home Secretary has challenged critics of her plans. We've just been hearing to send migrants to Rwanda to come up with a better idea. Writing a joint article in The Times with the Rwandan Foreign Minister, Priti Patel reiterated that her controversial plans were bold and innovative. It's after the leader of the Church of England, Justin Welby, said the proposals were ungodly and raised serious ethical questions.
Boris Johnson said to be getting ready to defend his premiership in front of Parliament this week. He's due to make a statement in the Commons once MPs return to Westminster. That will be tomorrow after their Easter break. Well, the Prime Minister is expected to urge MPs to move on from partygate, insisting there are bigger issues to focus on.
The final COVID restrictions will be lifted in Scotland from today. People will no longer legally have to wear face masks on public transport and in most indoor public spaces as the rule moves to guidance only.
Now let's turn our attention to Ukraine. Fighters in the besieged city of Mariupol have ignored a Russian ultimatum to surrender as Ukraine signals that the war for the city is far from over.
Yeah, it comes as the country's president, Volodymyr Zelensky, warns that delaying the supply of weapons to Ukraine gives Russia permission to take the lives of his people.
Well, joining us now is former Army officer Patrick Benham-Crosswell. Thank you very much. What is your analysis? Mariupol, the city, Zelensky seems to be saying, we will fight and we'll fight and, you know, this we'll do it for as long as it takes.
Well, I think that's exactly right. Mariupol, it's facing, the Russians are facing the nightmare for any attacker, which is fighting in a city, and the defenders will carry on fighting. They've missed their moment to surrender, if you like, which was always going to happen. They'll stand and fight, and that will soak up Russian troops. It will cause Russian casualties, and it will distract and, one would hope, impede the Russian build-up for whatever their plan C is.
But they're delaying the inevitable, it seems like Mariupol will fall at some point.
It depends on how you define fall, but that would be the logical outcome. That said, it is not easy to clear out the last people who are highly motivated, generally somewhat peeved. They'll be in a fair state of battle shock and aggression or whatever. Digging them out could take forever. I mean, there may come a moment when the Russians say, do you know what, we got enough of it and we can get through it. And it really depends on the detail of the routing of which roads through Mariupol they're trying to use them, this, that and the other, for their next operation. At the same time, keeping that going, it's become obviously a symbol, very much like Leningrad and Stalingrad were symbols. And the Russians reference back to what they call the Great Patriotic War a lot. And it's important that they can destroy Ukrainian morale. So if they capture Mariupol after a ridiculously long siege, at least, it's one less thing keeping the Ukrainians in the game.
Give us your best sort of analysis of how Russia currently stands, not just in Mariupol, but in the war in general.
It took a hiding, and it's now regrouping. And that's probably happening in two ways. Firstly, they're continuing the contact in the eastern Ukraine, probably trying to push forward a little bit to get decent bits of ground from which to launch an attack, unseen to us and, if you like, off the eyes of the world. I suspect they're rolling out the rest of their armed forces ready for a massive offensive when the ground gets hard enough. That gives the Russians about three things they need to be doing. One is waiting for the weather. Secondly is putting together new units and making sure they perform somewhat better than the first lot did. And finally, putting together the logistics for it. The Russian attacks, if they're armour-heavy, consume vast amounts of particularly artillery ammunition, and that weighs, and it needs to be moved in, quite possibly from all over Russia.
And what about an amphibious assault? Because the Ukrainians have said they're worrying about that.
Well, that was a bit of a worry because that would enable him to sneak round to Odessa and theoretically surround terrestrial Ukraine. That may very well still be on the cards, but I doubt there are many volunteers for it at the moment, having seen what happened to Moscow. And I think that was a useful demonstration from the Ukrainians that, we have some very good weaponry. It was a Ukrainian missile, not a Western missile that did it. We have some very good weaponry. You're attacking, you're the person with the problems. How the Russians attack, I suspect they're continually weighing the options, because what the Ukrainians have to do is hold them as best they can in their current places and build a reserve and get it to the right place. And the more options the Russians can keep open, the harder it is for the Ukrainians to commit effectively for what might well be the final battle of their country if they get it wrong.
The situation, of course, serious gravitas, particularly now that British nationals have been captured there, supposedly, according to reports. How does that change the territory, the landscape of this for us?
On the battlefield, I don't think it makes a blind bit of difference. They were fighting Ukrainian forces effectively. It's one Ukrainian soldier that the Russians have got to capture. The Geneva Conventions apply if they're wearing a uniform and they're believed to be. That said, I'm not particularly sure I'd like to be a prisoner of war with the Russians, but I'd rather be a prisoner of war than a body in a basement in a steelworks in Mariupol.
Patrick, really good to talk to you this morning. Thank you so much for that insight. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Patrick Benham-Cresswell there, former army officer and military expert.
Now, 22 minutes past 7. Don't go anywhere because we've got the latest sports stories for you, including who's headed to the FA Cup final with Paul Coit. That's straight after the weather. Last day of the bank holiday. Looking ahead, it's looking bright for many of us. A mix of sunshine and scattered showers. Let's look in the southwest, and we're going to see a mixture of sunny spells and scattered showers throughout Easter Monday morning. It's feeling fresher though. Temperatures around 13 degrees Celsius. Let's head over to the capital. There's going to be plenty of sunshine and dry weather for the London area and southeast England, with temperatures reaching about 14 Celsius by lunchtime. Let's head over to Wales. There's going to be a mixture of sunny spells and showers. They could be quite heavy towards the coast, feeling pleasant in the sunshine. In the Midlands, it's going to be mostly dry, but there are a few light showers possible, mainly to the north of Birmingham. Temperatures rising a little above average for the time of year.
Showers for northern England. Let's head there this morning too, on the heavy side from time to time. In between, there will be plenty of sunshine, feeling pleasant with light winds. Meanwhile, in Scotland, Orkney and Shetland, we'll see some early rain. Otherwise, much of the country will be bright with sunshine and showers. Breezy in the north and west, and in Northern Ireland, a brighter day compared to yesterday. There will be plenty of sunny spells, but also the risk of some showers too. Highs of around 12 degrees Celsius.
So through the day, most places are going to stay bright, but there will be some further scattered showers possible. And as we said, breezy in the northwest. That's how the weather's shaping up today.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you, or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Rosie and Paul. Good to have you with us this morning.
We're live across the UK on both your TV and your radio, and we're also armed with some very beautifully made Easter cupcakes. I hope you're having a good Easter bank holiday, whatever you're doing, because, we're here bright and early to keep you company for the rest of the morning.
Yeah, still to come on today's programme. Our reporter Ellie Costello will be on your doorstep in Essex, finding out how locals in Burnham-on-Crouch have been spending Easter.
And coming up just before 8 o'clock, we're headed over to Warwick Castle to speak to their Director of Imagination. We're going to find out what that actually entails and how they're celebrating Easter too.
I thought that was just in Willy Wonka. Time now for a look at the biggest sports stories with Paul Coit. Paul, very
there's
good
not a
morning
link
to you.
Willy Wonka.
I was going to say something like
because that was a bit of a worry for a second.
Sports answer to Willy Wonka.
Yeah, great.
Coit.
Oh, that's nice. I was just worried that it's interesting that Rosie's cakes have no eggs on them where yours do, Paul.
Yeah.
Would that possibly be?
Yeah, I know.
Not that I would question what's been going on in any sort of break.
Should we get to the sport rather than my snacking habit?
OK, just worried, that's all. Just wondering where they were. Chelsea beat Crystal Palace 2-0 to reach the FA Cup final again. It's the fifth time. I mean, I say it in that way, fifth time now in 7 FA Cup finals that Chelsea are there, who are now going to play Liverpool again in a cup final at Wembley. Last time was back in February when they won the League Cup, when Liverpool did, when it was all on penalties. So Liverpool on for the quadruple. Chelsea looking for revenge, and they're going to try and stop them. But see, I don't know about you, but people are trying still to get the FA Cup back to the place it was years ago. Because, I mean, it was the ultimate competition, and many years ago, it was more important than winning the league.
Yeah.
I mean, it really was. They used to have TV was on in the morning, following everything, but the reason for it was purely because it was the only game that was live on the television.
Yeah.
So nowadays, we can see everything, and it's kind of diluted the cup a little bit, and especially when you get the same teams that seem to get there the whole time.
Yeah, because it is the world's oldest cup competition.
It is.
So
it's over 2,500 years old. That's how long it's been going. Well, 1871, I believe, is actually when it was. But there's also talk, because what UEFA have been doing with talking about coefficients and other teams being able to get into the Champions League, there was a rumour, and I would like to see this, that the FA Cup, if you win the FA Cup, I've mentioned this before, and a lot of people say, oh, you can't do that. But if you win the FA Cup, how about that? You get into the Champions League.
Yeah.
It'd be a great incentive, wouldn't it?
Yeah, then people will be paying more attention to it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Managers. Anyway,
absolutely. So it's not only in England then, because in Scotland as well, Rangers, they're through to their goodness knows how many FA Cup finals they've played in, but they beat the old enemy and they beat Celtic yesterday.
Wow.
Always a huge game, and of course they play them a lot more usually than they would in years gone by. But that was an enormous game. They went to extra time 2-1. The Rangers managed to beat Celtic, and I got a strange feeling. Although Celtic are 6 points clear at the top of the Scottish Premiership at the moment, Rangers are pushing. You know, they've got to the Europa League semi-final, so they're playing in that, and they're doing extremely well as well. And also how it's going to affect the dynamic to lose the Old Firm derby, whether actually Rangers are going to push up against Celtic. We'll keep a very close eye on that. So very good as well.
Well, it's good to have that rivalry, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, I mean, if ever there's a rivalry, that is the one. Of any rivalry in the world, the Old Firm derby, that's it.
Yeah.
Still as... right.
Fruity as ever.
I think fruity was the word I was looking for, yeah.
Should we move over to cricket?
Yes.
New director of England's men's cricket.
Yeah, this is Rob Key. Now, Rob Key, very well known to TV fans, very good commentator, very good pundit, and also great cricketer as well, played for England.
Yeah.
He's now taken over from Ashley Giles as the director of cricket. I know, Paul, you're a big cricket fan, aren't you?
Yeah, do you know what? I'm a big cricket fan, but I didn't know Rob Key had been appointed managing director.
Well, it's only just happened.
Yeah. Really? This morning?
Yeah, you probably wouldn't have had the call yet, so it'll probably come this afternoon. But it did only happen. It only happened yesterday.
Wow.
There were rumours that he was the man to take over. He's never been in an administrative role in sport before, but I don't want to name drop. I was talking to Bumble this morning, David Lloyd.
Okay.
And he knows him very well and says, look, he's going to be fantastic. He's a man with a great sense of humour. A lot of people think, well, he jokes a lot, but very, very serious about his cricket. The problem is the way that the England cricket team have been doing in tests. We need to improve our red ball game, and it looks like Rob Key is going to be all over.
And particularly, England are terrible in the red ball game with the bat. So it's good that there's a batsman who's managing the direction.
Who knows? Yeah, absolutely. Something needs to change. So there's going to be a new captain, which is going to be appointed. It's interesting that Joe Root stepped down on Friday within just a couple of days of Rob Key coming in. Whether they're linked, I have a feeling they probably are. That decision was going to be made anyway. So a little call that said, look, just to let you know, this is where we're going to go, and it may be a good idea if you step down and fall on the sword. But as far as actually playing goes, I'm sure that Joe Root's still going to be around.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see who he makes captain. Listen, really good to talk to you this morning, Paul.
Thank you.
Paul Coit there,
cake, by the way.
our sportsman this morning.
Well,
thank you. There you go, yeah. You want one?
Thank you very much.
Have it. You
All I
have
had to
it.
do was
Made by my partner.
Bless you. Thank you.
Help yourself.
Don't go anywhere. We'll have more sport a little later on. But up next, we're taking you through the front pages and the newspapers after this.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question.
That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you, or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back. Let's bring you up to date with this morning's top stories then.
The Home Secretary's challenged critics of her plan to send migrants to Rwanda to come up with a better idea. Well, Priti Patel's written a joint article in The Times with the Rwandan Foreign Minister, and she reiterated that her controversial plans were bold and innovative. Well, it's after the leader of the Church of England, Justin Welby, said the proposals were ungodly and raised serious ethical questions.
Boris Johnson is said to be getting ready to defend his premiership in front of Parliament this week. He's due to make a statement in the Commons once MPs return to Westminster after the Easter break. PM is expected to urge MPs to move on from partygate, insisting there are bigger issues to focus on.
Thousands of volunteers who joined the COVID vaccination programme have now got permanent jobs in the NHS. Well, the Health Secretary, Sajid Javid, says it's a positive boost to the health service, which is struggling with staff shortages and a huge backlog caused by the pandemic.
It is 7:35. Time to go through the papers this morning with journalist and broadcaster Nabila Ramdani and columnist and commentator Andre Walker. Very good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Let's start with Andre then. Andre, you want to talk about the world economic recovery from stagflation.
Fascinating stuff at this time of the morning. Well, but it is an incredibly serious issue. Look, I genuinely think that the Western world is effectively self-aborting. The way that we are deliberately destroying our society, the way that we had this crazy lockdown, destroyed the economy. You know, we had Rishi Sunak, that eat out to help out. You might as well have just incinerated a couple of billion quid. It was a complete waste of money. Well, now, of course, we've got this problem in Ukraine, and it's a humanitarian disaster, and it's terrible for the people who are trapped in Mariupol. But actually, there's a knock-on effect right across the world, because not only do we have a lack of growth as a result of all of these economic shocks, but we also have inflation as well. I hate the word stagflation, but it is an incredibly serious problem. People are getting poorer and poorer and poorer. And of course, we've got all these crazy ideas like this net zero carbon, which has plunged people into poverty. And then, of course, we have all these problems in Ukraine as well. And some of the statistics, by the way, of the knock-on effect of Ukraine is unbelievable. I don't know if you know that cooking oil is now 3 times what it used to cost, I think, about 2 months ago. Now, when you put that, of course, cooking oil is not a major problem for most people, but when you take the totality of all these agricultural products that previously came from Ukraine, we do have a significant problem here. And I think that when you have such damaging policies as the lockdowns have been in Britain, and these damaging policies on the loony green agenda, actually you are causing significant problems for
people.
So
this is the situation that we've inherited now. Any solutions?
Well, we could win. Look, I think genuinely what we have to do in Britain, of course, is to bonfire all of those EU regulations which have weighed down business so badly. We're doing pretty well in terms of negotiations on free trade deals. But of course, the problem that we have a huge opportunity, don't we? Because Brexit is not a thing in of itself. It gives you an ability to do something. But what we've not done yet is got rid of all these crazy regulations that the EU brought in. If we do that, we can make our businesses far more competitive and start trading around the world. Also, I have to say to you, you know, we are the architects of our own destiny with all of these mad green policies. I mean, one of my favourites was when we shut down all of our steel plants on the grounds that we taxed them to death with green taxes and just moved them to more polluting plants in China just to make ourselves feel better. You know, the #1 export from the port of Southampton is rubbish. I mean, if you think about that, it's unbelievable.
Do you know the show I'd like to watch? I think it'd be Andre here and Extinction Rebellion on the other side, and we could just leave. Oh, I don't think we'd need to be in the studio
that would be a great discussion. That would be a great discussion.
Let's move on to something else, because Paul's actually going to be headed to France later on this week, because of course the French go to the polls. Paul's getting a little bit hairy, Mr. Macron. We have here in the Mail a very smiling, I have to say, looking quite handsome, Mr. Macron, with a lot of buttons that have been undone. If you're listening on the radio, Macron's sort of laid back on this mustard sofa, but he's got a white shirt on that's open, I would say, to below the, what would you describe this bit? The sternum, I'm being told. And there's a very hairy chest.
It's the Simon Cowellization of politics.
It is really. He's doing a lot of man-spreading there, a lot of buttons. Nabila, what do you make of this as a French
this is
woman yourself?
Emmanuel Macron as we've never seen him before, it has to be said. I mean, look, this is election week. The French are going to the polls next Sunday to decide whether he stays in power or whether they put Marine Le Pen, the far-right candidate, in power. So he's hoping to win a second term, and he's resorting to a rather unusual vote-winning strategy. I mean, the Mail said that he's showing a glimpse of his decidedly luxuriant chest hair in order to help him win.
He's flirting.
That is deliberate. Right. That's not an
absolutely.
accident.
He's got a photographer, a female photographer, who follows him on his campaign trail, and he's been posting rather moody pictures of him as a poser. We've seen him in his Zelensky gear during the conflict, wearing a hoodie.
And men with cheveux on their chest, is that quite a big thing in France?
Well, I have to say, I've interviewed him a number of times, and I was convinced he was the clear-cut boy next door. But looking at this picture, it looks like he's got, chest hair that's got a life of its own. And I hope it's not a wig.
Oh, gosh. He does have to go on a bit of a charm offensive, because this time a week ago, there was real concern. Those polls had got really tight.
Yes, I mean, he's a modern politician. He wants to win an election. He wants to be the first president in 20 years to win a second term in office. And he's obsessed by image, like all modern politicians. So he's no exception to that rule. He's still very young, especially for a French politician. He's 44 years old. He clearly wants the world, and indeed voters in France, to know it. I just hope that his mum and indeed his wife approve.
Yeah, and the polls in France with Le Pen, they have widened a little bit like his shirt.
Yes, indeed. Well done. I mean, it's a hotly contested...
Andre liked that, didn't you?
I missed Paul's dry humour. Shall we move on to the Times?
I'm so glad you've not made me comment on his hairy chest.
Oh, what do you have?
Please, what do you... Yeah, I mean, what do you make of it?
No, let me tell you. I've got a terrible problem because, I mean, the only bit of me that's not hairy is the top of my head at the moment.
Yeah.
You know, I started...
that was too much information.
I started at the back with some wings and then it just sort of took over.
Let's talk about...
You know what it's like, don't you?
Well, yeah, I'm struggling to get anywhere near that. I've just got... I don't know how. I've just got a few...
I love the way we've offended all the women with this. It's great. We can keep doing this all day.
If you're listening on the radio, you're getting a much better experience, I can promise you that. Yeah.
Let's talk about Boris Johnson. Page 2 of the Times. They've looked at some research. There's 4 in 5 believe Boris Johnson is out of touch on the inflation crisis, is he?
Yeah, and actually, you know, I'm thinking about this. Maybe I should have put this together with the FT, because I just think that they're absolutely the same thing in terms of politicians just not understanding the position that ordinary people are in. You know, I was up north at the weekend, and by the way, the number of people that are watching GBNews in Manchester is just astonishing. I got stopped in the street everywhere, but I was in a little place called Goulburn in Asda in Goulburn, and there was a woman there who was telling me that she had 3 jobs and she still couldn't pay the bills. And you just look at the level of cost that people are suffering from at the moment, and you get the impression, you know, oh, we've created X number of jobs. Yeah, but, you know, people have got 4 of them and they still can't pay the mortgage. I mean, it's just extraordinary.
Yeah, so should the government do more? Like, I know you've talked about getting rid of EU regulations. That takes time. Yes. Immediately, what should the government do?
The first and most important thing is the government needs to recognise a couple of things. First of all, the number one issue right now is not Ukraine, it's not Brexit, it's not immigration, it's the cost of living crisis, and it is a crisis. And the reality is, I mean, I was talking to somebody the other day who lived in Windsor, you know, family with a £70,000 income, but because the cost of housing going through the roof, they're actually comparatively poor. 70 grand income and you're comparatively poor. Obviously, it's worse in other parts of the country. We've got to start saying to ourselves, this is the number one issue. You know, look, I think Keir Starmer is a truly, truly terrible Labour politician. You know, he absolutely hates his own voters over the issue of Brexit, and yet he might beat Boris Johnson. Why might he beat Boris Johnson? Because of the fact the public are right. I mean, only 4 out of 5 believe that Boris Johnson is out of touch in inflation. I mean, I'd have thought it would have been 100%.
Yeah.
But there you go, he's doing all right.
Just very quickly, Nabila, what do you think the government should be doing, if indeed it can do anything more to reduce the cost of living? Which is a big issue in the French election as well.
Well, it is a huge issue, and as Andre was quite really saying, this is one of the after effects of, dare I say, the war in Ukraine. We're feeling it through, we're trying to put an awful lot of pressure on Putin to try and stop this bloody conflict by putting an awful lot of sanctions on Russia. But as we are realising, those sanctions have an effect on us as well. So, it's quite tricky, but that something drastic has to be done. I don't know if it takes more spending or cutting taxes. I mean, Chancellor has to work it out, I suppose.
Yeah.
Nabila, Andre, thank you very much. Back in the studio with us about an hour's time to bring you some more stories. Right now it's 7:45. We'll bring you up to date with what else is happening today.
Yeah, the Home Secretary has challenged critics of her plan to send migrants to Rwanda to come up with a better idea. Writing a joint article in the Times with Rwanda's Foreign Minister, Priti Patel reiterated that her controversial plans were bold and innovative. It's after the leader of the Church of England, Justin Welby, said the proposals were ungodly and raised serious ethical questions.
Nearly 1 in 10 parents say they're very likely to need to use a food bank in the next 3 months. 1.3 million are struggling to feed their families, with 88% saying their monthly food shop has increased in price. Well, research by Deliveroo shows 1/3 of all parents have skipped one or more meals to keep up with essential costs.
Volunteers are being lined up to drive ambulances as the backlog of patients continues to grow. It's part of a pilot scheme due to launch next month. The London Ambulance Service says volunteers will be trained and equipped and offer support to emergency calls in their area.
Well, happy Easter Monday.
It is indeed, and it is 7:45. Good to have you with us. If you're planning a trip to Warwick Castle for some medieval fun on the site originally built by William the Conqueror during 1068, then you're in for a treat.
I've been looking forward to this all morning. The Director of Imagination at the Castle, Liam Bartlett, and the lead knight, Sir Jay, join us now. A very good morning to both of you. I think we can tell who is the lead knight. Thank you very much for joining us. So Easter Monday, you're putting on a whole load of activities. Being lead knight, what does that involve?
So here at Warwick Castle, we try and bring the history as live as best we possibly can. So as lead knight, really it's my job to try and engage the children, try and not only entertain them, but give a little bit of education and try and sneak that education in with the fun that they'll be having here and kind of try and get them to learn without even realising it.
And how do you do that, Sir Jay?
And that's right, we have many different ways that we can do it. I mean, obviously, the building itself is one of the most amazing buildings in the whole of the place. And to be here dressed like a knight with all manner of different weapons and things like that to be able to talk about, to teach them about how to fight, how to talk like a knight, how to be around knights, and how to just what medieval life was like. We try and keep it all nice and in focus with everything that we do here.
Can you just talk like a knight for us?
Well, you see, when we talk like knights, obviously, when we go back then, I mean, I should probably speak in a slightly different language, as most of us over here would be speaking a version of Normandy French. But if it was here, it'd all be good morrows and so on and so forth.
And there's been a lot of gesticulating as well, very close to with that sword to Liam, Director of Imagination. So explain to us, what does that entail? What vibe are you trying to create for the visitors? No!
Oh no! Hang on. That looked like the lead knight there. A black screen. Oh, terrible.
No.
Ye olde technologies not working.
I'm really disappointed. I wanted to find out more about the Director of Imagination and particularly the lead knight. I wanted to find out if he had a helmet as well. But that would make what was already quite a tricky interview for audio even more tricky, I have to say, being far away. If you've been, let us know. And maybe if you've done something really imaginative or fun over your Easter weekend. There's been baking at your house. I've been in Devon, which was totally wonderful to have a really fantastic Easter. But let us know what your plans have been as well. You, of course, can get in touch with the programme in any number of ways. You can tweet us at GBNews, or you can email us gbviews@gbnews.uk. If we can go back to Warwick Castle, we will do.
Yeah, also, your favourite castle. There are so many castles in the country.
We met for the first time at a castle. Windsor Castle.
Windsor Castle?
Yes.
Oh, yes, when we were reporting. Yes, at Windsor Castle. Yes, that's right. Yes, Windsor Castle. So your favourite castle as well. Because castles are a bit of much of a muchness, so, let us know your favourite castle, gbviews@gbnews.uk. Right, it is 7:48. Let's go to On Your Doorstep this Easter Bank Holiday Monday.
Today we're in the historic sailing town of Burnham-on-Crouch.
Yeah, our South East of England reporter Ellie Costello is there for us. Morning, Ellie. What's happening where you are?
Well, good morning, Paul and Rosie, and I hope you had a lovely Easter Bank Holiday weekend and you're going to enjoy your Easter Bank Holiday Monday as well. We're in Burnham-on-Crouch today, which is a historic sailing town in Essex, and the sun is shining for us. It's really a beautiful town, and we're here all morning talking to local people about issues that matter to them. So we had to come into this house because look at this incredible magnolia tree behind me, all these lovely pink flowers. So let's have a little knock on this door and see who's behind it. This is number one. Hello, you are live on TV and radio. Do you want to step forward and introduce yourself to the camera?
Oh, hi. My name's Jane English.
Jane English.
Yes,
Is it all right if we come inside?
Come on in. Come on
Lovely.
in.
Thank you so much. Your house is lovely.
Well, thank you, but it's a bit of a work in progress at the moment because, as you can see and you can hear as well, that we've got a new extension.
And this is the new extension
This is the new extension. It's a work in progress. We've got Easter eggs on the floor.
Yes, amazing. Sign of a good weekend there. No, this is amazing. It's so light and bright, and I love the spotlights as well.
Thank you. Well, it's a 2-storey extension. I've got 2 girls, and they're leaving home, so we thought we'd make the house bigger.
It's time to build a mansion.
Party!
Fabulous. So, Jane, how long have you lived in Burnham-on-Crouch for?
Well, I've lived in Burnham for about 39 years, coming up 39 years. I've been married for all of those years, and I like it here.
Yeah. What do you like about it? For people who haven't been before, what's the appeal?
Well, apart from the fact that we live on a river, which is wonderful, I like things like the marshes. It's like a terrain that's sort of otherworldly. That you drive onto the marshes or you walk onto the marshes, and the land is sunken, but you can actually see the boats above you on the river, which is quite spooky, really.
Yeah, absolutely incredible.
Yeah, and then also, one of the other things I absolutely love, and I used to take my children when they were small, was the Rio Cinema, which is our 1930s, I think it's 1930s, gem of a cinema with 2 screens. And the joke is that in the second screen it's quite small, it's quite niche, and you could put your popcorn in the middle and everybody can reach in.
Everyone can reach into the popcorn. No, it's incredible. And if you are coming to Burnham, we do recommend the Rio Cinema. It's an amazing historic building, beautiful.
It is.
Jane, we've been talking about loads of things on the programme today. Right. Very quickly, I'm going to ask you about this. And then we've got a little surprise up our sleeve as well. It's about the Ukrainian situation. We have been talking about that on the breakfast programme today. How are you feeling for the Ukrainian people?
I just feel desperately sorry for them, because they've just, out of the blue, they've become disenfranchised, and so people here are welcoming families, which I'm really pleased about. I mean, I help with an Afghani family who've settled here, help them with their English. So it's a great community.
It really is, and we do get that sense being here today. Now, Jane, we did have a little surprise for Paul and Rosie, which is you are retired now, but before that you were a singer. You still are a blues and rock singer.
I am.
So we are live on TV and radio, and I wanted to ask you, would you sing us out from this little segment?
Well, I certainly would.
Oh, it would be our honour. Take it away, please.
I ain't gonna let you win again. You've been winning far too long. Whoa, I ain't gonna let you win again. You let me down, you done me wrong.
Incredible, Jane. Absolutely incredible. Paul and Rosie,
marvellous stuff.
Absolutely incredible for this time of the morning.
Yeah, marvellous stuff. Great stuff on your musical doorstep there.
Yeah, what a delight, what a treat. Unexpected, a surprise. Ellie, thank you very much. We'll be checking back in with Ellie on our doorstep in about an hour's time. Now we can go back to Warwick Castle to speak, let's hope, to the director of Imagination there, Liam Bartlett, and the lead knight, Sir Jay. We lost connection just as I asked Liam, what does it actually mean to be the director of Imagination?
Sorry, that was our medieval Wi-Fi, I guess. It's a brilliant opportunity here at the castle for me to be able to bring history to life in the best way possible for all of the ages that come and visit us. So all of the families that come and visit this Easter, we have a brand new Zog Playland, which brings to life the story of the Zog books. We have a Horrible Histories Maze, which is absolutely perfect for those children that are really wanting to start to learn about history in a fun and exciting way. So they can get lost in our maze, and history's been jumbled up, and they have to find all the pieces of history, all the periods of history, and put it back together. Of course, we have the castle itself and all of the fantastic attractions inside the castle. You can venture up to the top of Guy's Tower behind me here, or you can go inside the castle and learn about all of the history that took place here. And then our headline show really over the Easter break is the Falconer's Quest, which is the UK's biggest bird of prey show. So we had some real fun with that show, bringing to life the history of falconry, the medieval art of falconry, but by basically flying over 70 birds throughout the show. It's a real spectacle, and it's a highlight of the visit at the moment.
It sounds amazing, Liam, but the problem is you're making school sound boring.
That's exactly my job. My job is to make school as boring as possible so you can come and learn about it in the flesh.
How wide scope do you have with your title of Director of Imagination? Have there been any projects you've pitched where you've been told, no, overambitious, can't do that?
Not so far. But some of the really exciting stuff we do across our summer holidays. So this year we've got probably our biggest lineup of events ever. So we have jousting across the whole of the summer in our Wars of the Roses show. That's a fantastic, amazing jousting show that brings to life the story of the Wars of the Roses, which is complicated in itself. But it's a fantastic show. We also have a series of nighttime events, and they're some of the most imaginative things we do. We have, for example, Dragon Slayer, which is a story about Guy of Warwick, and it's a legend that is based here at the castle, and it involves pyrotechnics and projection mapping and all sorts of amazing technology. So we have some real fun with that stuff, and then we also do some of the really sort of core history tours and experiences in the castle. So you can get a full breadth of offer, and that's what I enjoy most about my role here.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. And just finally, if we can talk to Sir Jay again. Sir Jay, what do people say when you tell them what you do for a living?
It's an interesting one. The problem is whenever we talk about what we do for a living, no one really wants to talk back at us about what they do. It's the amount of people that you've spoke to in a party or something, and we always try and get in, me and the rest of the team at nights, we always try and ask them what they do before they come to us, because people lose interest and stop talking to us after that point.
Yes, you might be a bit embarrassed to say your job after you can't really compete with lead night, can you? Thank you very much to both of you, Sir Jay, and also to Liam, Director of Imagination, both at Warwick Castle. Absolutely fantastic to have you on the programme this morning.
Yeah, really good to have you with us. Right, stay with us this Bank Holiday Easter Monday. More on the government's clash with the Archbishop of Canterbury straight after your weather.
Last day of the bank holiday. Looking ahead, it's looking bright for many of us. A mix of sunshine and scattered showers. Let's look in the southwest, and we're going to see a mixture of sunny spells and scattered showers throughout Easter Monday morning. It's feeling fresher though. Temperatures around 13 degrees Celsius. Let's head over to the capital. There's going to be plenty of sunshine and dry weather for the London area and southeast England, with temperatures reaching about 14 Celsius by lunchtime. Let's head over to Wales. There's going to be a mixture of sunny spells and showers. They could be quite heavy towards the coast, feeling pleasant in the sunshine. In the Midlands, it's going to be mostly dry, but there are a few light showers possible, mainly to the north of Birmingham. Temperatures rising a little above average for the time of year.
Showers for northern England. Let's head there this morning too, on the heavy side from time to time. In between, there will be plenty of sunshine, feeling pleasant with light winds. Meanwhile, in Scotland, Orkney and Shetland, we'll see some early rain. Otherwise, much of the country will be bright with sunshine and showers. Breezy in the north and west, and in Northern Ireland, a brighter day compared to yesterday. There will be plenty of sunny spells, but also the risk of some showers too. Highs of around 12 degrees Celsius.
So through the day, most places are going to stay bright, but there will be some further scattered showers possible. And as we said, breezy in the northwest. That's how the weather's shaping up today.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you, or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Senior government figures hit back at the Archbishop of Canterbury after he used an Easter sermon to attack the government's new asylum plan.
Good morning, it's 8 o'clock on Easter Monday on the 18th of April. This is Breakfast on GB News with Rosie and Paul.
We're live across your TV, your radio and online. Here's what's leading the news this morning.
Senior ministers clashed with the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, last night after he used an Easter sermon to attack the government's plan to send migrants to Rwanda. He argued that the plan was against Christian teachings, but ministers say it will tackle traffickers and save lives.
The Prime Minister's facing fresh calls for resignation as new revelations emerge now of a November 2020 party in which Boris Johnson allegedly arrived and started pouring the drinks. Well, the Prime Minister will face the Commons tomorrow and is expected to apologise for breaking COVID rules.
And the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge led yesterday's Easter Sunday service in Windsor after the Queen said she would not be attending due to health issues. It comes ahead of the monarch's 96th birthday on Thursday.
You can join any of our discussions. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk or you can tweet us to @gbnews.
Our top story this morning then, senior ministers have hit back at the Archbishop of Canterbury after he used an Easter Sunday service to attack the government's asylum plan.
Well, the new plan would see tens of thousands of migrants who come to the UK through irregular routes, then given a one-way ticket to Rwanda to claim asylum there.
In his intervention, the Archbishop Justin Welby branded the strategy opposite to the nature of God. The sentiment was echoed by the Archbishop of York, who said the policy was depressing and distressing.
Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Minister of State for Brexit Opportunities, countered that by saying the aim of the government's policy was to do good and that it would help those in genuine need and make it harder for crime to prosper.
Another minister told the Mail that it would be ungodly if the government did not take action to curb people smuggling, adding that the policy had gone down well across the country.
Let's find out more. The Ministry of Defence say more than 6,000 migrants have crossed the Channel to the UK in small boats this year.
Over 200 of them were detected on Good Friday, with more expected during milder weather. Joining us now is Kevin Saunders, former Chief Immigration Officer for the UK Border Force at Calais. A very good morning to you, Kevin. Thank you for speaking to us. Is the government's plan ungodly?
Good morning. No, it's far from ungodly. It's a good idea. What we have to do is to break this awful cycle of people smugglers pushing people across the Channel, which is incredibly dangerous. We've already seen deaths. This is the answer. This is the answer because would you pay £10,000 to get into a boat, to come to the UK, to be told you're going to Rwanda? Well, I certainly wouldn't. So this will hopefully mean that people will see sense and claim asylum in Europe.
It's not the answer according to the United Nations. They've said this policy is unacceptable and a breach of international law.
I don't believe it is a breach of international law. There's nothing in the UNHCR that says you can't move people to a safe third country.
What about Matthew Rycroft, who's the permanent secretary to the Home Office? He said that there was not enough evidence of the deterrent effect of the plan, and also they're not even sure how much it's going to cost. So would you say that this is a long shot?
No, I don't think it's a long shot. I think, as I said, I think it's actually a very good idea. Once the word gets out that you're not going to be going to stay in the UK, but you're going back to Africa, then I think people won't come. I think it's a win-win situation.
So why? You think it will be enough of a deterrent that people won't want to make the journey in the first place?
I think it will be a deterrent, yes. I don't think people will want to come all the way across Europe to attempt to get into the UK if they know they're not going to be allowed to stay in the UK.
I
mean let's face it, asylum is supposed to be in a safe country. Europe is perfectly safe. So they could stay in any of the other European countries if they so wish.
One of the problem is with this policy is that it's actually maybe hurting the wrong people, the people on the boats coming over, rather than the people smugglers.
No, I don't think so. I don't think that's true at all. Europe is quite safe. These people could quite happily claim asylum, as a number have done already. Claim asylum in Europe. The big problem that we've got, the real elephant in the room here, is the fact that the Europeans don't want to play. They will say, if you want asylum, the UK's that way, off you go. And that's the big problem. Getting a European agreement on this, and the problem will disappear.
Kevin, those refugees that do want to come here, they want to come here because of, they speak English and they have family here. Are you saying that that's irrelevant? You should just go to Europe, irrespective of whether you can speak the language or not?
Yes, basically, if these people are claiming asylum because they are in fear of what would happen in their home country, they claim asylum when they reach the first country they come to that's safe. They don't go asylum shopping. I mean, we've already seen, haven't we, people... one gentleman has been in Europe for 15 years. He's claimed asylum in every European country he's been to, just to see which one he liked best. I mean, now, finally, he's decided to settle in France. But this is a situation that we can't have. Asylum shopping is not on. These people need to claim asylum in the first safe country they come to.
Just finally, one of the criticisms that Justin Welby made yesterday was that we were subcontracting out our responsibility even to a country that seeks to do well. In your mind, that's actually an effective strategy?
I don't want people to be having to go off to Rwanda. What I want is people not to be coming to the UK. And the ball is firmly in their court now. If you come to the UK illegally across the channel, then you're going to Rwanda. If you claim asylum in France, Germany, Belgium, Italy, the Netherlands, then you can have a very nice life.
Kevin, could you just clear something up for me? Because we did put this twice to Natalie Elphicke, the MP for Dover, earlier, which is, what are the legal routes to applying for asylum in the UK? I still couldn't establish that with her.
I'm not currently up to date with that. I mean, we have the Syrian scheme, we have the Afghan scheme. Other than that, I'm not completely up to date on what the legal routes are at the moment.
Yeah, because that's what a lot of organisations are saying. They're saying if there was a legal route to apply from those countries, for example, you visit your nearest British embassy, then the applications could be processed a lot quicker, and then people wouldn't make the journey on the boats.
Well, that's an argument, but the thing is, that's not what we're talking about, is it? We're talking about people coming to the United Kingdom illegally, and that's what we've got to stamp out. For goodness sake, we had 27 deaths in one day on the channel, and we've had another half dozen on other days because people are being put into boats that aren't seaworthy to come across the busiest shipping lane in the world. This is what we've got to stop. We need the European Union to start playing the game and helping out, particularly the French, and that would put an end to this. if you had a European...
Thank you very much for speaking to us. I'm so sorry we have to leave it there. Really appreciate your analysis, though. Former Chief Immigration Officer for the UK Border Force, and you've sparked a lot of emails this morning. Kerry says that's the truth on all costs. The individuals and the politicians are to blame. Stop blaming the traffickers. The problem is we hand out freebies. And someone else here saying, Kevin is saying what most people think, we can't care for everyone. Thank you all for getting in touch.
Yeah, GBviews at gbnews.uk. It is 8:10. Prince Charles used his Easter address yesterday to pay tribute to the millions of Ukrainians forced to flee their homes following Russia's invasion, saying he was heartbroken by their plight.
Well, that came as the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, along with their children, Prince George and Princess Charlotte, led members of the royal family for the annual Easter Sunday service at Windsor Castle.
For more on this, our royal correspondent Cameron Walker joins us now. Good morning, Cameron. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Good morning. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thanks. What did you make of Prince Charles' address?
Well, I think there was two possible reasons as to why he decided to dedicate his entire Easter message to the plight of refugees. On the one hand, we've seen him actively take an interest in the plight of Ukrainian refugees. He's visited a number of community centres. He also visited the Ukrainian Catholic Cathedral in London at the start of the Russian invasion. But I think the timing was quite interesting as well, with the whole government announcements of sending refugees who are coming across, or asylum seekers coming across the channel to send them on to Rwanda. Of course, we don't know exactly why Prince Charles decided to dedicate his speech to that, and it was embargoed, so it was written before Easter Sunday. But I think it's raised a few questions, for sure.
Other questions, if we move sort of away from politics into the royal family itself. The Queen missed the Easter Day service for the first time in 52 years.
She did.
She'll be so disappointed, surely.
She certainly would be. She is very, very religious, and she knows just how important these annual services are. And of course, for the last 2 years, it's been the coronavirus pandemic, so she hasn't been able to attend anyway. But we were warned that we shouldn't expect her to attend yesterday's service. We know she's had mobility issues recently. So I think more and more...
She's going to be 96 this week, isn't it?
On Thursday, she turns 96. I mean, how many 96-year-olds do you know who are still carrying out active duties as she is, either virtually or from the comfort of Windsor Castle?
And help us, Cameron, she has 2 official celebrations of her birthday, doesn't she? So this Thursday is her actual birthday.
Yes, so this Thursday is her actual birthday, which is, you know, the date that she was born, the 21st of April, 1926. Her official birthday, Trooping the Colour, is happening in June, and that's going to be where we have the big Platinum Jubilee celebrations, where we'll have all the pomp and ceremony, real British patriotic ceremony going on in central London down the Mall.
And the big question is she going to be fit, healthy, able enough to go to any of these events? Because it seems from the palace they're saying very last minute she's going to decide, almost on the day, if she's going to turn up to these things.
I think so. I think she'll certainly want to attend, and I think she'll make every effort to do so. I think the challenge for royal courtiers and Her Majesty the Queen herself is deciding which events to prioritise, which public engagements to prioritise. We saw her that she did attend her late husband Prince Philip's service of Thanksgiving at Westminster Abbey a couple of weeks ago, but she missed the Commonwealth Day service, and she didn't attend the Royal Maundy service the Thursday just gone. She didn't attend the Easter service yesterday. So I think she knows the importance of the Platinum Jubilee. You know, it's the first British monarch ever to celebrate it. And I think she'll do, you know, make every effort to be there, but we just don't know.
Yeah, they're having to give real practical considerations to each event, aren't they? Literally things like walking up the stairs and how they get her there.
Yeah.
And they're having to kind of prioritise events where she can travel by car.
Yes, exactly. And also, you know, she had to have an escort down the aisle at Westminster Abbey. Prince Andrew escorted her. She didn't come through the main entrance. She didn't come through the Great West Door as other members of the royal family did. She came through via Poets' Corner because it was a shorter route to her seat. I think it's comfort. It's all about comfort and making sure that Her Majesty is comfortable at her age.
Can we very quickly talk about the Invictus Games over the weekend? Because Harry and Meghan sort of came out of hiding. They had quite a romantic moment.
They certainly did. In the speech, they decided to kiss on the stage. Did you see they were kind of professing their love to each other? We see the pictures there. It's the Invictus Games. It was meant to happen in 2020. Because of the coronavirus pandemic, it has been delayed by 2 years. It's
founded by Prince Harry, so he's on home territory here, isn't he?
He certainly is. It's the sporting events for injured...
There's the smooch.
Yes, there's a smooch. There's a smooch. Yes, it's the first time we've seen them in Europe together at an official public event since they decided to step back as senior working members of the royal family. But they definitely, were in their speech very much professing their love to each other, and it looked real. It looks genuine to me.
Yeah. Cameron, thank you for speaking to us this morning. Thank you. That is our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker, there with all the latest on the royal family. It is 8:15. Let's bring you up to date with this morning's top stories.
As we've been hearing, the Home Secretary has challenged critics of her plan to send migrants to Rwanda to come up with a better idea. Writing a joint article in The Times with the Rwandan Foreign Minister, Priti Patel reiterated that her controversial plans were actually bold and innovative. It's after the leader of the Church of England, Justin Welby, said the proposals were ungodly and raised serious ethical questions.
Boris Johnson is said to be getting ready to defend his premiership in front of Parliament this week. He's due to make a statement in the Commons once MPs return to Westminster after the Easter break. The PM is expected to urge MPs to move on from partygate, insisting there are bigger issues to focus on.
It's like one of our GBNews emails as well.
Yeah.
The final COVID restrictions are going to be lifted in Scotland from today. People will no longer legally have to wear a face mask on public transport, and until today, most indoor public places, as the rule moves to guidance instead.
Good to have you with us this Easter Bank Holiday Monday. We're going to go to Ukraine now, and a second former British soldier has been captured in Mariupol, where Ukrainian resistance is holding out against Russian forces.
The soldier, Sean Pinner, said he'd been fighting alongside Ukrainian Marines in a video aired on Russian TV on Saturday night.
Well, joining us now is Jason Piljak, who is a former colleague of Sean Pinner, and another captured British soldier, Aidan Asdin. A very good morning to you.
Good morning, guys. How are we doing today?
Yeah, very good, thank you. First of all, your reaction to this news?
I mean, it's devastating. It's devastating. So I spent a little bit of time with both Aidan and Sean with the Syrian Democratic Forces back around 2016.
And what kind of conversations did you have with them before they decided to go out to Ukraine?
Sure. So after Syria kind of concluded, they saw the Eastern Front out in Ukraine as kind of the next standhold for democracy, I guess. They see themselves as quite the standard bearers for democracy.
And sorry, did you have conversations with them about whether they were going to go out there, what they might be able to achieve?
Yes, of course. So, I mean, them volunteering out there, basically what they wished to achieve was a pushback into the annexation of Crimea. What they did and what they wanted to do back then was to join the proper Ukrainian armed services, which they were both part of the 36th Marine Regiment.
And Aidan Asdin's family they've emphasised that he's not a mercenary. Can you just explain for those of us who don't know why that term is particularly damaging?
Yeah, sure. No, they're far from mercenaries. In fact, they're both Ukrainian citizens at this point, I do believe, and proper uniformed Ukrainian Marines. Mercenaries, on the other hand, are just hired guns.
Jason, well, we've both been out reporting around the borders, and while I was out there, I did speak to some British nationals they'd come to fight in Ukraine, but then they'd left saying that they had to sign 4-year contracts. We haven't been able to verify that. Have you heard anything along those lines yourself, that people foreign fighters are being signed up on long-term commitments?
Sure, but this 4 or 5 year contract is normal for armed services from any country. Here in America, they're in Britain. You're going to sign a 4 or 5 year contract to serve in the proper armed forces, and that's exactly what they did in Ukraine.
It sounds quite unusual signing up for that length of time for another country, though.
Well, it's obviously not typical for someone to join another country and sign a contract. However, these two, they did want to become Ukrainian citizens, and they did want to defend democracy there on the Eastern Front.
You know, it's really difficult because they have posed a new risk of being able to use, once captured, be used by the Russians for propaganda.
Yes, it's unfortunate. And they do tend to use that term mercenary. I believe in the beginning they said if they found any foreign fighters that they would just treat them as terrorists, which unfortunately we know for Russia is execution on the spot. So we're lucky that these two are still alive. In fact, their social media presence has probably helped keep them alive. But as we see now, they are being used as a Russian mouthpiece for their propaganda.
All right, Jason, really good to talk to you this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Do let us know what you think about what Jason had to say there. GBViews at gbnews.uk.
Now we're going to move track a little bit. Do stay with us. We're discussing the latest showbiz stories, including an alleged fix claim on Britain's Got Talent. That's after the weather. Last day of the bank holiday. Looking ahead, it's looking bright for many of us. A mix of sunshine and scattered showers. Let's look in the southwest, and we're going to see a mixture of sunny spells and scattered showers throughout Easter Monday morning. It's feeling fresher though. Temperatures around 13 degrees Celsius. Let's head over to the capital. There's going to be plenty of sunshine and dry weather for the London area and southeast England, with temperatures reaching about 14 Celsius by lunchtime. Let's head over to Wales. There's going to be a mixture of sunny spells and showers. They could be quite heavy towards the coast, feeling pleasant in the sunshine. In the Midlands, it's going to be mostly dry, but there are a few light showers possible, mainly to the north of Birmingham. Temperatures rising a little above average for the time of year.
Showers for northern England. Let's head there this morning too, on the heavy side from time to time. In between, there will be plenty of sunshine, feeling pleasant with light winds. Meanwhile, in Scotland, Orkney and Shetland, we'll see some early rain. Otherwise, much of the country will be bright with sunshine and showers. Breezy in the north and west, and in Northern Ireland, a brighter day compared to yesterday. There will be plenty of sunny spells, but also the risk of some showers too. Highs of around 12 degrees Celsius.
So through the day, most places are going to stay bright, but there will be some further scattered showers possible. And as we said, breezy in the northwest. That's how the weather's shaping up today.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you, or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Rosie and Paul.
We're live on GB News across the UK on both your TV and your radio.
Yeah, still to come on today's programme, we'll ask UK Energy Minister Greg Hans. He'll be joining us. We'll be getting his thoughts on partygate and the Rwanda migrant plans when he joins us in around 10 minutes' time.
And we're back on your doorstep in Burnham-on-Crouch in Essex to discover what the residents there make of today's top stories and how they've been celebrating Easter. Now, though, let's get the latest showbiz news. Joining us in the studio is entertainment reporter Ellie Phillips. Thank you very much. In terms of bank holiday entertainment, Britain's Got Talent was back on our box this weekend, but it's not come without controversy.
always the case with Britain's Got Talent. Yes, season 15 kicked off Saturday and Sunday this weekend. And
season 15?
Yeah, I know, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Isn't it? The amount of talent and the range of talent is always so impressive. Like, you have people on scooters, you have ventriloquists, dancers, and it is great to see that type of thing. But viewers are claiming that a lot of the acts in there were fixed. It was all staged. The first one was Saturday night. There was a guy that performed called Nick Edwards. And people are saying it was a fix because he was actually sat in the audience. His mother and 2 young daughters were brought out onto stage, and he was like, wait, what is my mum doing on stage? They surprised him and said he would never have applied himself, so they were there to get him up on stage to sing. But people noticed that Nick, sitting in the audience, had a microphone on him when he was surprised by them. So people are like, what's going on? It was a really sweet moment. He sang this song dedicated to his daughters about fatherhood, which was really sweet. Oh, wow. And producers have said, no, it wasn't a fix. We actually duped him on arrival and said, oh, do you want to be one of our Gogglebox audience members so we can hear reactions? And that's how they got him into it, with his wife being like, you know, yeah, do it. So I kind of guess that one makes sense.
Was he a good singer?
He was all right. The song was beautiful.
And was that the only fixed claim?
No, 2 more. So after that...
In one episode?
One episode, there were 2. So one of the women who performed is a singer called Lauren Alred. She's the first person of the series to get the golden buzzer, which sends people straight through to the final. So Amanda Holden gave her the golden buzzer. However, this singer sang Never Enough from The Greatest Showman. She is that singer. It's her voice singing that song, which has 64 million hits on YouTube. She's performed previously with Michael Bublé, with Andrea Bocelli. She's a really seasoned performer.
She's not an amateur.
She's not an amateur.
But is it a competition for amateurs?
Exactly, that's the point. People are saying, well, why shouldn't she? You know, I checked and she has like 11,000 followers on Twitter and 100,000 on Instagram, which in the world of America, which she's from that world, is not that significant, as weird as that sounds. Like, she's not Beyonce, you know.
Sure.
She still has, ways to go in her career. Third fixed claim came on Sunday night when a comedian called Axel Blake performed a stand-up routine. Simon Cowell gave him a golden buzzer, but then it turns out that Axel already has a show on Amazon Prime.
So
people
again,
are kind of like, you know,
so we know these people are talented already. I guess that's the criticism.
Yeah, there's no
They don't need to be
surprise.
discovered here.
They're not being discovered, you know, they already know, and they're already successful in their own right. They're just using this as another platform, and is that taking away from people who, you know, are just giving it a go, who've never really pursued this as a career option?
Does it really spoil the show, though? We're there to watch talented people, aren't we?
Do they on Britain's Got Talent, do they run those little VTs beforehand where they kind of have a really sad story and then they come on stage and do it? Because you're depriving the audience of that sad story.
Yeah, not as much. So it's more like backstage. It's like, them chatting backstage. I'm excited to do this. This is why. There's less of the, we're in their home. Ooh, are they going to go through? We're not going to waste the production going that far type thing. So it is a little bit different.
OK.
Right, we'll be doing more showbiz a little later on. Poor Britain's Got Talent's got a very poor write-up there. But there we go, accusations of fixes and maybe it not being as maybe authentic as the producers would like us to believe. Ellie, thank you very much. We'll have more showbiz a little bit later. Don't go anywhere, though, because we'll take you through the newspapers straight after this.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's 2 questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, but to the point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back. Let's bring you up to date with this morning's top stories then.
Well, the Home Secretary has challenged critics of her plan to send migrants to Rwanda to come up with a better idea. Writing a joint article in The Times with the Rwandan Foreign Minister, Priti Patel reiterated that her controversial plans were bold and innovative. Well, that's after the leader of the Church of England, Justin Welby, said yesterday that her proposals were ungodly and raised serious ethical questions.
Elsewhere this morning, Boris Johnson is said to be getting ready to defend his premiership in front of Parliament this week. He's due to make a statement in the Commons once MPs return to Westminster after the Easter break. PM expected to urge MPs to move on from Partygate, insisting there are bigger issues to focus on.
The final COVID restrictions are going to be lifted in Scotland from today, so people will no longer legally have to wear masks, face masks on public transport and in most indoor public spaces. So the rules instead move now to guidance.
Thousands of volunteers who joined the COVID vaccination programme have now got permanent jobs in the NHS. The Health Secretary, Sajid Javid, says it's a positive boost to the health service, which is struggling with staff shortages and a huge backlog caused by the pandemic.
Well, let's go through the papers. Joining us in the studio is journalist and broadcaster Nabila Ramdani and columnist and commentator Andre Walker. Let's start, shall we, with what's happening in Ukraine. We were hearing about it a little bit earlier on the programme, particularly, Nabila, the situation in Mariupol, the city there. And what seems to be very clear is that the defenders are just saying, we will not budge.
Yes, indeed. This is a harrowing dispatch, actually, in the Eye today from Mariupol, the city that hasn't fallen, or maybe yet, and Ukrainian forces vowing to fight till the end. And this is despite the ultimatum that Vladimir Putin issued to Ukrainian forces. The Kremlin had given Mariupol's last defenders until 10 a.m. yesterday to lay down their weapons and effectively give up. But as the deadline passed away, there is no indication of compliance or indeed from the Ukrainians to give up. And they say that they will continue the resistance. And I mean, this just gives an indication that the war has now reached a critical stage, hasn't it? We keep hearing that Mariupol is about to fall, and yet it's not falling quite yet. The Russians are clearly desperate for a significant breakthrough, and they would use a story like this as to use for propaganda, that they're almost there.
Yeah, and once they take Mariupol, that is effectively a route to Mykolaiv and then onwards to Odessa.
Yes, indeed. I mean, taking Mariupol in the state it is at the moment would be an absolutely devastated Mariupol, and you wonder why the Russians do that to, create so much death and destruction. There's a sense of pure nihilism about it all, and as you said, the expansion of the aggression carries on. There's an expected mass attack in the Donbass region as well, which looks very likely, and this takes us back right to 2014 when there was already fighting in the Donbass already. So you do get the impression of a stalemate war, where you've got areas that are lost as quickly as they're won almost. And I reckon that Putin is hoping for a quick victory in time for his celebration of Victory Day in the Great Patriotic War on May the 9th. And this should really make us start to worry about the possibility of Putin using nuclear weapons, in fact.
Yeah, what's your feeling, Andre? Is he going to have his victory by May the 9th, do you think, or is it going to drag out
Well,
longer?
I've got a system at home which is a bit obscure, but I can watch pretty much every TV channel in the world on it. And I've been watching I don't speak Russian, but I've been watching Russian and Belarusian TV, and it was really astonishing. I think last Saturday, every single Belarusian channel had a programme about the Belarus genocide during the Second World War, effectively trying to link Ukraine to that. The message going out in Russia is that there are significant food shortages in Britain caused by the sanctions, and that the ruble has bounced back, so Vladimir Putin is effectively winning the economic war. Now, if that's not pushing Belarus towards war and telling the Russians that they're winning, I don't know what is. I'm extremely concerned about all this because, look, we already saw the battle plans leaked accidentally by the Belarusians that showed an invasion of Moldova. Less likely now, given that the Russians have had a hiding. But what upsets me more than anything else, and we've got to say this, Vladimir Putin is what the Americans call a chicken hawk. This guy is hiding in the Kremlin with that big table because he's afraid of getting a virus off people, willing to send your kids into war, not willing to go anywhere near the battlefield himself. Hawkish with you, chicken himself. And I think his threats and his desperation make him look utterly pathetic. But the problem, of course, to go back to that TV system, they're not seeing it in Russia, they're not seeing it in Belarus. The message is not getting through.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Moldova, actually, because I know the Moldovans are very worried that they could be next, still, aren't they? They're a tiny country, they're not a member of EU, they're not a member of NATO, and if the Russians do make advances towards Odessa, it's only, an hour from the border with Moldova, former Soviet state. They're worried that he could move on into Moldova.
Yes, and of course, what happens is if you take Moldova, you massively shorten the land border with NATO, because obviously there's the Caucasus Mountains there as well. If you take Moldova.
We're going to pause the papers right there. Andre and Billy, we're back with you in a second, because we're joined now on Breakfast this morning on GB News by the Minister of State for Business, Energy and Clean Growth. It's Greg Hands. A very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us on the programme. The main topic we've been discussing is Priti Patel saying, if you don't like this plan, come up with another one. A former minister earlier, Norman Baker, said it made him not proud to be British. Are you proud of this plan?
Well, look, the point is, what is going to be effective and how are we going to deal with this problem? Last year, 28,500 people entered the country illegally across the Channel from France. 27 people died in that process. Clearly, the government has to take action. That is why we've done this agreement with Rwanda, two sovereign countries making this agreement. And we think it will be effective in deterring people from making that perilous journey and clamping down in particular on the people smugglers who are profiting too much from human misery in making that journey. That is the purpose of the policy.
We've been trying to establish this all morning, Minister. What are the legal routes for asylum seekers to apply to the UK, say if they're coming from a country like Iran?
Well, there's lots of different legal routes, and in fact the UK has given sanctuary to 185,000 people since 2015. That is a lot of people. 15,000 from Afghanistan, around about 97,000 I think from Hong Kong, and others. There's plenty of legal routes to apply to migrate to the UK. What we do want to take action on is illegal migration. The UK, we've got a good tradition of providing sanctuary to those fleeing conflict. What we don't want to have is illegal migration, particularly in the numbers that we've seen. As I say, 28,500 people last year. That compares to just 300 in 2018 making that cross-channel journey. 100 times increase. Inevitably, the government is taking action.
I mean, is it possible to be an illegal asylum seeker?
Is it possible to be an illegal asylum seeker? Well, if your asylum claim is turned down, then you wouldn't enter the UK. But here it's a question of relocating would-be migrants to Rwanda. It's a different kind of policy.
The only way you can apply for asylum is to arrive here legally. I mean, that's your legal right to claim for asylum, but you can only do it on British soil, so it's a kind of catch-22.
Well, look, we're confident that this scheme is legal. We're confident that through the different migration laws and immigration laws and police and borders bills that we have and acts that we have over recent years, that this scheme is legal. As I say, it's also a sovereign agreement between two sovereign countries, the UK and Rwanda.
Let's move on briefly if we can. You're going to announce some new laws designed to protect shoppers' money in saving clubs. Can you explain why they're needed and how they'll help?
Yeah, well, about 4% of people in this country take part in savings clubs. This is where you pay money into a company over the course of a year or a few years to save for an event that you know is coming up. It might be something like Christmas, it might be a family funeral, and we want to make sure that consumers' money is protected. There has been a voluntary code until now, but we will be putting it into legislation to make sure that those companies protect consumers' money. So somebody might remember the case of Fairpack, which went bust in 2006, leaving a lot of people stranded without their savings. This is to make sure that that never happens again.
I want to ask you very briefly, there's going to be a new GCSE focusing on saving the planet, a GCSE in natural history after demand for lessons on climate change. Do you think that younger generation are engineering a real significant shift towards climate policy?
Well, I think young people, I've got two teenage children myself, are incredibly engaged on climate change, as you would expect and you'd want them to be. I think that's really, really good news. And I think what we can tell them in this country is the UK, we have made significant progress towards reducing our emissions. We're going to go net zero by 2050. We've reduced emissions in this country in the last 30 years by some 44%. So pretty good record, in fact the best record in the G7, but we need to go further, we need to go faster. So my message to young people watching is yes, the UK government is here on your side. We led the world at COP26 in bringing the world together to make sure the Glasgow Climate Compact builds on those international agreements. And the whole world delivers in terms of reducing emissions and gets to net zero. That is the purpose of our international climate change policy.
Talking about being on people's sides, are you on the Prime Minister's side this week? There are rumours of a vote of no confidence because of the Prime Minister's conduct re Partygate.
Well, I've heard nothing of that. What I do know is the Prime Minister will be appearing in the Commons. He appears very often, actually, more than I think any other Prime Minister I can remember. I've served as an MP under 5 different Prime Ministers, and Boris Johnson appears more than any of them in the House of Commons later this week to answer questions from MPs, to explain what has happened, the fact that he has apologised, he's paid the fine, he's expressed regret at what has happened. But equally, I think he wants to outline how he's getting on with the job and how the government is getting on with the job and how the government is delivering for the people of this country, anything from the vaccination programme through to taking the tough action on Ukraine and sanctions on Russia, all of these things. I think he's looking forward. I'm sure he's relishing the chance to be back in the Commons explaining to MPs.
Has he told the truth?
Well, look, the Prime Minister, I'm sure, has never knowingly misled Parliament, and he will explain everything that's happened. I think that is what he said very clearly, to give him the chance to explain in the House of Commons to MPs what has happened. But I just stress again that he has apologised, he said that mistakes were made, he's paid the fine, but equally, let's hear it from Boris Johnson later this week.
Rumours this morning, though, that he instigated another party. If that's true, then how many more times can he say sorry?
Well, look, I think your question, if that's true, let's wait and see. The police is doing an investigation of these matters, and I wouldn't want to preempt that.
All right, thank you very much for speaking to us this morning, Minister. Appreciate your time. Thank you. It's Greg Hands there, who's the Minister of State for Business, Energy and Clean Growth.
Let's go back to our journalist in the studio with us, journalist and broadcaster Nabila Ramdani, and also columnist who I can hear laughing already, Andre Walker. What did you make of that? Not a full-throttled support and defence there of Boris Johnson. It was a sort of wait and see.
No, and I'm a good friend of Greg Hands. As you know, I used to work at the House of Commons. I used to be a Conservative political advisor and press officer and all that sort of stuff. So I've known Greg for years, and I think he's a good guy. But the problem is, it's really hard to defend Boris Johnson. Now, whether he should disappear as Prime Minister, I don't know. But, you know, that I'm as shocked as you are that these parties took place. He literally went to them, right? And then the whole thing that really annoys me, and I don't know whether you guys agree and whether the viewers agree, but this whole concept, which was we thought we'd found a loophole, and we thought it was legal for that reason. They were having a party, but they believed that there was some way of, you know, subverting the law, a law they brought in. I think that whether it's legal or illegal, they should have acted within the spirit of a law they brought in. No, actually, I'm talking rubbish. They shouldn't have brought in that stupid law to start with, so I could have visited my mother when she was sick in hospital.
Nabila, Greg Hands said that Boris Johnson was going to relish the opportunity to be able to sort of speak to MPs and set the record straight. Is he looking forward to this, or do you think Boris Johnson should maybe be nervous?
Well, I think he will inevitably be nervous, because that's not the first time we're going to hear him trying to explain himself. And as you quite rightly asked, Paul, is it going to be the last time he says sorry? Is it going to be the last time he's have to pay a fine? For example, how many more fines will he be served with? I think there's a slightly disingenuous posture from the Prime Minister. I think it would be quite wrong to just try to shrug it off. I think there are very serious underlying issues. Andre has just mentioned the death of a relative. Lots more people in the country would have gone through those experiences, and also the loss of jobs and all sorts of suffering. So I don't think he can adopt his casual, aloof and indeed, carefree attitude. That would be out of order.
Yeah, I guess the fear at number 10 is if there are more fines for the Prime Minister, if he's found to have broken COVID rules further, then the defence of it was a mistake, I'm sorry, you can't keep saying that.
Yes, indeed. How many mistakes can he make? And, members of the public who were caught making those mistakes were punished in a very
may I just return to this point where he continually says, I believed it was legal. What he's saying is, I believed that I'd found a loophole because I live in my office, effectively. That's it. Not I was going with the spirit of the law, not I genuinely believed in the rules that were being brought in, not that I was going to do what everybody else was going to do, that I'd found a way of making myself a special category. Now, it turned out to be wrong, but I think even the excuse is pathetic.
What about the defence? Let's let the defence that we need to move on from this. It was ages ago, and we've got to deal with bigger issues.
But Paul, that's not the defence. The defence is Keir Starmer's even worse. You know, he just wanted to lock down forever, and he really believed in this stuff. The argument in favour of Boris Johnson is he's a damn hypocrite rather than a believer in this stupidity.
Right.
I want to ask very quickly about one other story that we're supposed to look through in our paper review. Evolution is what we can blame. If you've had over the bank holiday any arguments with your in-laws, you can blame evolution.
By the way, that wasn't just because it was page 3 of The Sun, right? And I'm not going to hold it up, right? But in fact, look, I'm hiding it under that.
Very well done.
Right, OK, so I love these ridiculous science stories that you get in newspapers. So apparently this one is that bickering with your mother-in-law is part of evolution because your mother-in-law is biologically programmed to favour her child over you. Now, I don't know whether that's groundbreaking scientific.
Yeah, who carried out that study? The University of Bleeding Obvious.
That's right. I love that stuff. It's like that red wine will let you live for another 100 years. Do
they suggest any things that you could do to avoid arguments, or no?
Well, I mean,
they've just said accept them if they happen.
I mean, I'll just make these up and pretend.
Okay.
Move to another country.
That's one.
Pay her off. Let her use your holiday home. None of these are in the paper. I'm just literally making these up.
Right, Andre, thank you very much for joining us, and Nabila as well. It's been great to have you this morning. morning on Breakfast on GB News. It is coming up to 10 minutes to 9. A pleasure to have your company. Let's bring you up to date with more of today's top stories.
Yeah, pay rises are falling well behind inflation. New research has found out of 1,000 managers questioned, half the number of companies were found to be giving basic pay awards, whilst the other half reported no plans to raise wages at all. The Chartered Management Institute says workers are seeking the extra financial boost because of the cost of living crisis, but some were sent away empty-handed.
Nearly 1 in 10 parents say they are very likely to need to use a food bank in the next 3 months. 1.3 million are struggling to feed their families. 88% say their monthly food shop has increased in price.
Research by Deliveroo shows 1/3 of all parents have skipped one or more meals to keep up with essential costs.
Volunteers are being lined up to drive ambulances as the backlog of patients continues to grow. It's part of a pilot scheme due to launch next month. London Ambulance Service says volunteers will be trained and equipped to offer support to emergency calls in their area.
It is 8:49, which means it's time for this.
We're on your doorstep today in the historic sailing town of Burnham-on-Crouch.
Our southeast of England reporter Ellie Costello is there for us now. Ellie, what is happening in that field?
Good morning, Paul and Rosie, and a very happy Easter Monday to you. Check out this incredible view. We are in the Crouch Ridge Vineyard right now. I've been talking about that river. This is a famous sailing town, Burnham-on-Crouch. You can see the River Crouch just behind me, about a mile down that slope there. But I wanted to show you this. This is an incredible vineyard here, really popular spot. And we're actually in the bud burst time of the season. So look, this is going to be a Chardonnay grape eventually, a really important time in the season. The next few days are really important, and this lovely warm weather and this sunshine is really good to make sure those grapes are tasting really lovely towards the end of the year. So let's talk to one of the owners of the Crouch Ridge Vineyard. Would you like to introduce yourself? You are live on TV and on radio.
So I'm Sam, along with my husband Ross. We own Crouch Ridge Vineyard and the wine barn.
Yes, and tell us a little bit about the history of this place, because not many people would expect this to be in the middle of Essex.
So we planted our lovely vineyard 10 years ago, so this is our 10th anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And we actually converted one of our picking barns into a tasting room and visitor centre just before Brexit. So this is like our first year of sort of like fully being opened.
And of course you've had the coronavirus pandemic to deal with as well. It's been difficult, but this is going to be your first full year open.
Yes.
And you're hoping for some really good grapes.
Oh gosh, we are really. I mean, if anything, if this weekend the weather was amazing, if it continues that way, we will have some award-winning wines.
Ah, fingers crossed, fingers crossed. And you are so well located, aren't you? You've got the train line really close by.
We have the train station. Hawthorne train station is literally 5 minutes walk away, and that takes you directly to Stratford and Liverpool Street. It's very easy access for Southend as well, so we get a lot of visitors from London and across the River Crouch, from Southend and Leigh-on-Sea.
Yeah, it's such a popular spot here. Sam is being humble, but honestly, in the height of summer, this place is absolutely packed. You can see the sun beating down on us now. It's absolutely fabulous. Sam, you've mentioned Brexit there, because this is something that has really impacted you, hasn't it? Because you needed fruit pickers to pick all of these vineyards.
We do. I'm in busy season, so picking and pruning, we need at least 20, a team of 20. Now, most of those workers actually came from Europe. So now we're a bit limited. The same with the wine barn. I mean, chefs and waiting staff, kitchen porters, we're finding it very difficult at the moment.
Just like anywhere, I suppose. It's not just happening here, it's happening all over the country. It's a shortage of staff. It's definitely a challenge. We can see some of the products on the table here in front of us. So who do you sell to?
So we sell from the wine barn. We sell online on our website, crouchridge.com, and then we supply a couple of the local farm shops.
Fantastic. Well, I think it would be a bit rude not to try any, would it? It's an
Definitely.
award-winning wine. What's the time? It's literally not even 9 o'clock in the morning, but it's never too early, is it? So this is a bestseller, this one.
Oh, yes. This is our premier cuvee. So we can't call it champagne, obviously, but it is
not in Champagne.
Yes. So it is.
Unfortunately.
I know. So it's made in the same traditional method as champagne. It is a blend of Pinot Noir and Chardonnay.
Lovely. Can I try?
Of course.
Okay, here we go. Taste test. Here we go. Sam, cheers to that. Absolutely beautiful, beautiful award-winning wine. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Here. Really fantastic to speak to you about the issues that matter to you. And cheers. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, Ellie, and to your guest as well. There you go, a bottle of Burnham. There you go.
It's a very nice way to spend the Easter weekend.
Indeed. And what is it? It's not even 9 o'clock yet. Yes, I must say, it's not me that was baking. It was my fiancé, who's an incredible baker. So
I had a very bizarre situation this weekend. I was staying in Devon and we went to the local Methodist church for the Easter Sunday service. And someone in the congregation, actually 2 members of the congregation, and it was small, maybe like 100 people, had brought their dogs. So there was like a chihuahua sat on someone's lap through the whole service.
That's all right.
It was just very surprising.
Yeah, and were they barking along?
No, but then when they brought round communion, it was a little bit awkward because the lady trying to give it to... Because we did it, like, rather than going up to the front, it was brought to everybody.
Yeah.
And then she, like, leant down with it, but then the chihuahua was just there in front of like, a plate of bread.
Well, God loves animals.
I didn't know, really, that people would bring their pets to church.
Yeah, God loves animals.
Of course, but could you
all
have,
animals.
But we wouldn't bring, like, a pet rabbit to church, would
Well, hang on,
you?
what about Noah and the Ark and, you know, the animals on the Ark?
Like
there
a
was
small Devon
I'm sure there was a pair of
service.
chihuahuas that were on the Ark as well.
Anyway, it was just really bizarre. If you've had an interesting Easter weekend, let us know. Earlier, we were speaking to Warwick Castle. They have a, get ready, director of imagination who basically, we spoke to him, his job is to come up with the most wild and crazy, wacky ideas to make the castle far more engaging than it would be to go to school.
Yeah.
And he seems to be fairly successful in it.
Yeah, and he was with a lead knight as well. That's as in literally a lead medieval knight in all the gear.
Yeah, and they said, which I did really enjoy, that Paul said, well, what do you tell people when you say what you do for work if you're a lead knight? And it would be quite hard to follow that and say, oh, I'm a journalist or I'm whatever. It's never going to be as interesting.
Yeah.
Actually, get in touch if you've got a job more interesting than being a lead knight.
Yeah, that would be
You'd have
something.
like a little hierarchy.
Yeah, I bet he's had all the nightclub jokes as well. Yeah, do let us know if you... They have an Inaria. They like that one, actually. Yeah, do let us know if you've got a job that's more interesting than lead night, gbviews@gbnews.uk. We've got half an hour of the programme left. Stay with us. We'll continue to discuss the government's Rwanda plan after your weather forecast.
Last day of the bank holiday. Looking ahead, it's looking bright for many of us. A mix of sunshine and scattered showers. Let's look in the southwest, and we're going to see a mixture of sunny spells and scattered showers throughout Easter Monday morning. It's feeling fresher though. Temperatures around 13 degrees Celsius. Let's head over to the capital. There's going to be plenty of sunshine and dry weather for the London area and southeast England, with temperatures reaching about 14 Celsius by lunchtime. Let's head over to Wales. There's going to be a mixture of sunny spells and showers. They could be quite heavy towards the coast, feeling pleasant in the sunshine. In the Midlands, it's going to be mostly dry, but there are a few light showers possible, mainly to the north of Birmingham. Temperatures rising a little above average for the time of year.
Showers for northern England. Let's head there this morning too, on the heavy side from time to time. In between, there will be plenty of sunshine, feeling pleasant with light winds. Meanwhile, in Scotland, Orkney and Shetland, we'll see some early rain. Otherwise, much of the country will be bright with sunshine and showers. Breezy in the north and west, and in Northern Ireland, a brighter day compared to yesterday. There will be plenty of sunny spells, but also the risk of some showers too. Highs of around 12 degrees Celsius.
So through the day, most places are going to stay bright, but there will be some further scattered showers possible. And as we said, breezy in the northwest. That's how the weather's shaping up today.
Join me, Gloria De Piero, Monday to Thursday at noon for The Briefing. We go to the parts of Parliament that you won't see elsewhere. Plus, there's exclusive interviews with MPs from all parties.
But quite often, they paper over the real truth. Why does a working class lad like you join the Tories?
That's a good question. Don't miss it. Monday to Thursdays at noon on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, And I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes & Co.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
A very good morning. It's 9 o'clock on Easter Monday, the 18th of April. This is Breakfast on GB News with Rosie and Paul.
Yeah, very good morning to you. We're live across your TV, your radio and online. Here's what's leading the news this morning.
Senior ministers have clashed with the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, last night after he used an Easter sermon to attack the government's plan to send migrants to Rwanda. Justin Welby argued that the plan was against Christian teachings. Ministers, though, say it will tackle traffickers and save lives.
Elsewhere this morning, Boris Johnson is facing fresh calls for resignation as new revelations emerge of a November 2020 party in which the Prime Minister allegedly arrived and started pouring drinks. PM will face the Commons tomorrow and is expected to apologise for breaking the COVID rules.
The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge led yesterday's Easter Sunday service in Windsor after the Queen said she wouldn't be attending because of her health issues. Well, that comes ahead of the Queen's 96th birthday on Thursday.
You can join in any of our discussions by emailing us gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at gbnews. But our top story this morning, senior ministers have hit back at the Archbishop of Canterbury after he used an Easter Sunday service to attack the government's asylum plan.
Well, the plan would see tens of thousands of migrants who come to the UK through irregular routes given then a one-way ticket to Rwanda to claim asylum there.
In his intervention, the Archbishop Justin Welby branded the strategy opposite to the nature of God. The sentiment was echoed by the Archbishop of York, who said the policy was depressing and distressing.
Well, Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Minister of State for Brexit Opportunities, countered that by saying the aim of the government's policy was to do good and that it would help those in genuine need and also make it harder for crime to prosper.
Another minister told the Mail that it would be ungodly if the government did not take action to curb people smuggling, adding that the policy had gone down well across the country. Earlier, we spoke to Natalie Elphick, Conservative Member of Parliament for Dover and Deal, and she told us that the policy sends a clear message to people smugglers.
The reality at the moment is that as soon as someone has set foot here in the White Cliffs, then it's extremely difficult for them to be removed. And what this policy is doing is it's saying to people who are inclined to pay people smugglers, don't bother. If you want to come to the UK, you are welcome to apply through a safe and legal route to work, to study and to seek refuge. It's not the right thing to do to pay people smugglers to go this unlawful and dangerous route where lives are put at risk. So don't do it. Apply the right way.
So if you're an asylum seeker from, say, Iran, which is one of the countries where a lot of these people trying to cross the channel comes from, what is the safe and legal route that they should follow then to apply for asylum in the UK?
Well, people who are seeking asylum can apply in a number of ways. But what we've seen across the Channel, and I think the Home Secretary and her French counterpart have said this on countless occasions, the majority of people who are coming into our country across this particular route are people who they have designated to be economic migrants, people who are coming into this country who are already safe in France and many other countries before France, and so have no need to get into that flimsy dinghy in the first place, have no need to pay the people smugglers, and shouldn't be doing so. They should be seeking refuge in France if they are in need of refuge.
But Natalie,
and many other
what
countries
is
before France. And France do provide that safe place of refuge for people who are there, and many other countries, as of course does the UK.
Yeah, but what is the legal route for someone to apply to asylum in the UK if they're coming from a country like Iran?
Well, there are countless ways in which people seek refuge, and that depends on the route in which they are coming at, as you know. And what we know across this particular channel route is that by very, very large numbers, about 70% of people who are estimated to take this route are what are classified by the French and UK authorities as economic migrants. So it's really, really important that we say to people, if you want to work, you're very welcome to apply to work and study in the UK, but you've got to take the safe and legal routes. And this is not a safe and legal route. And we've seen in relation to the many, many programmes that have been set up around the world that the UK takes part in resettlement, that actually if you're in genuine need of assistance, then the UK is there and is welcoming. The UK is one of the world leaders in the resettlement programmes around the globe, and it's absolutely vital that those are the routes that are taken, working with the United Nations Refugee Council and other aid agencies in those places where it's unsafe to be.
Well, let's find out more. We're joined in the studio now by our political correspondent, Tom Harwood. Tom, a very good morning to you. Priti Patel is standing firm. Her defence, really, to any of the criticism is come up with a better plan.
That certainly seems to be the case. Ultimately, what we have is a system of border checks in the UK. We don't have a system of open borders where anyone's allowed to come in. And if you're going to have an immigration system, if you're going to have a system whereby you need people to pass certain processes in order to come into the country, you need a way to enforce that. So if one side is saying that there should be a system by which people can come into the country, there needs to be a way to enforce those rules to make sure that people can't jump the queue, can't cheat the system, and can't do it in a way that is particularly at risk of life and limb in such a treacherous way that's controlled by criminal gangs. If you're not going to support the government's way to do that, there is an argument there that you should come up with your own system. Otherwise, you sort of end up almost tacitly encouraging that rule breaking. Now, that's what the government says is the case. What the opposition would say is that there aren't so many of those legal routes for people to come, and so people are forced into very tricky positions. Now, of course, there are some legal routes for certain refugees. We have processing centres in France and indeed neighbouring countries of Ukraine for Ukrainian refugees. The UK takes refugees from camps in the Middle East, from particular situations in Afghanistan as well. But in terms of those general processing centres, they're lacking when it comes to the UK. So that's potentially a valid point that the opposition is bringing up.
Yeah, you spoke of tricky positions. Priti Patel could be in one herself if over the summer the numbers making their way across the channel increases, because she has personally nailed her name to this policy, driving it through, and kind of and in stark contrast to her advisors in the Home Office who were saying, we can't tell you how much it's going to cost and we're not sure if it's going to work.
Certainly, and the Prime Minister, when he announced this policy last week, said that the numbers had been rising year on year. He acknowledged that and said that this year is likely to be the highest year on record for those channel crossings, that the problem will get worse before it gets better. Of course, this policy is not going to start immediately. The Royal Navy is now policing the channel immediately, but in terms of the Rwanda deal, this is going to be mired down in legal challenges. It's going to go through the courts. It's going to need, of course, royal assent for the Nationality and Borders Bill as well. There's a lot that comes with regard to implementing this policy. And obviously, a lot of hurdles, both societal and legal, in the way as well.
Yeah.
Now, Tom, it's going to be an interesting week. The Easter recess finally comes to an end. Everyone will be back. MPs will be back tomorrow. Wednesday, we've got PMQs, and it's going to be a bumpy week.
It certainly is. It's been 2.5 weeks since members of Parliament have sat on those green benches, and quite a lot has happened in those 2.5 weeks. To some extent, the Prime Minister may well have been lucky that that first COVID fine came out when members of Parliament were back in their constituencies, some of whom were away on holiday as well. The sort of crucible of heat of that issue didn't reach the temperatures that it did several months ago. Now, the Prime Minister is making a statement tomorrow in the House. He will address the COVID fine. He will talk about it in the round, but also he'll try and move the agenda on. It's a busy week full of other stories as well. Of course, the new plan for immigration published last week, the Prime Minister making his first international trip as Prime Minister to India on Wednesday as well, and of course keeping in regular contact with President Zelensky of Ukraine, putting out almost daily releases of the conversations that those two men are having, clearly very close allies on that issue. So the real message from Number 10 is this is business as usual. We're not going to let Partygate distract us. Whether or not MPs will buy into that narrative, well, we'll have to wait for tomorrow to see whether they do or not.
Yeah, that's going to be a tricky conversation. Volodymyr Zelensky on one phone, and then India talking to India on the other, India having failed to criticise Russia for its invasion of Ukraine. But looking at the politics of this week, for the Prime Minister, there are allegations that he's been involved and instigated, quote unquote, another party. So trying to move the narrative on is difficult for him, and you've still got Sue Gray's report to come after the police investigation concludes.
You certainly do, and it's right to mention that that police investigation has not yet concluded. The first fines for the Prime Minister and the Chancellor and the Prime Minister's wife came out, of course, last week. But many people were surprised, not least the Chancellor himself were surprised, that that was an event that met the threshold for fines. It was probably, most people would agree, a pretty surprising one that met that threshold, given what happened with regard to people who were in that room for a meeting anyway, a cake coming out lasting not very long. Does it meet the threshold for a party? Well, clearly the Met Police thought so. If that event met the threshold for what constitutes being a party, being a rule-breaking event, well, we know about several more that may well meet that threshold too, and therein lies a tricky problem for the Prime Minister, a potential drip, drip, drip of more fines over the coming weeks.
So bad news for not only the Prime Minister, but for all the people who are saying we're fed up of Partygate. Well, unfortunately, the story's not going anywhere anytime too soon. Tom, thank you very much. Of course, you'll be here with the briefing at 9:30 until 10, so don't miss that here.
Yeah.
In the meantime, though, let's bring you up to date with the other stories making the rounds today.
As we've just been discussing, the Home Secretary has challenged critics of her plan to send migrants to Rwanda to come up with a better idea. Writing a joint article in The Times with the Rwandan Foreign Minister, Priti Patel reiterated that her controversial plans were bold and innovative. So after leader of the Church of England, Justin Welby, said the proposals were ungodly and raised serious ethical questions.
Well, the Prime Minister is said to be getting ready to defend his premiership in front of Parliament this week. He's due to make a statement in the Commons once MPs return to Westminster after the Easter break, as we've just been hearing from Tom. The Prime Minister is expected to urge MPs to move on from Partygate, insisting there are bigger issues to focus on.
Final COVID restriction will be lifted in Scotland today. People will no longer legally have to wear face masks on public transport and in most indoor public spaces as the rule moves to guidance only.
Now, it was seen as a breakthrough drug for those with epilepsy, helping to control fits and seizures. But now, questions are being asked about the prescription of sodium valproate, particularly to those people who were pregnant.
Yeah, the drug's been blamed for causing birth defects to babies born to mothers who took the drug during their pregnancy. It's believed to have caused autism, learning difficulties and physical deformities in up to 20,000 babies in Britain.
Now, 2 years ago, a report criticised doctors who'd failed to inform women of the dangers, but that drug is still being prescribed to pregnant mothers. Patricia Alexander, whose 2 children were both affected by the drug, said she received no safety leaflets with the medication. And she joins us now. Patricia, thank you very much for speaking to us. Just explain to us then the impact this drug has had on your life and the life of your children.
Good morning. As you said, I've got 2 children who are 21 and 12. We weren't made aware of the risks known to the babies at all. And there's a number of difficulties that they have and need a lot of support for, both physical difficulties and also to do with their sort of learning difficulties as well. So it's a lot of things that go into every day just to sort of be able to get through the day. And, until you actually sort of go through the day with us, you don't realise how much actually has to go into a day just to be able to get through this.
Sounds incredibly difficult, so we appreciate you telling us, Patricia. Just tell us a little bit about the drug that you took. A lot of people won't have heard of sodium valproate.
So I was diagnosed with epilepsy when I was about 20 years old in 1997, and I was introduced onto sodium valproate at quite a low dose. It didn't control my seizures, so they gradually increased it, and I was on 2,000 milligrams a day. And then we were looked after by a number of doctors all throughout the pregnancy. In my first pregnancy, we obviously asked a lot of questions. We were new to being parents. And the only thing that they mentioned then was the risk. There was a high risk of Down syndrome and cleft palate, which we were referred to a hospital up in London to be scanned for that, and we were assured that everything was okay. And then it was only really sort of as the years have gone on and the diagnosis come along, one again after the other after the other. And then we've got quite a big gap between our children, and nothing again was mentioned to us when we were pregnant with my second child. In fact, the questions that we asked, I was actually dismissed by my epilepsy nurse specialist, who just quite frankly turned around to me and said, "Look, you're not the first woman to have a baby with epilepsy, and you certainly won't be the last." And that was how I was treated at my appointments with my concerns. And I just thought, well, you obviously don't care about what I'm worried about.
What do you want to change to make sure that other women and their children don't end up having the same story and the same trajectory as you have?
Well, I think what's happening now is that awareness is key. And although this is sort of more recently, the information has become more available in the package inserts and on blister packs and things, we've seen that there are times when I even get my medication come in white boxes, and the label just says on there to speak to your GP if you're thinking of becoming pregnant, read more on the leaflet inside. And there is no leaflet inside. So how can women be expected to read about these things if the information isn't there and given to them? Also, when we get the purple boxes that do have the new warnings on, sometimes labels are stuck over those warnings. So if I'm getting boxes like that, there are plenty of other women who are getting boxes like that. And on epilepsy forums that I'm on, this sadly isn't something that is just me that's going through this. This is echoed up and down the country, affecting thousands and thousands of women who are equally learning about this too late. I didn't learn about this until my eldest was 15. And I wasn't told by a doctor. I found out on social media, which is actually quite heartbreaking to sort of learn that everything that your children have been diagnosed with and every single disability and difficulty that they encounter is all down to the medication that I needed. to help me.
And thank you for speaking to us, because, as you say, awareness is really critical, and hopefully that's what we've helped you do this morning on the programme. Patricia Alexander, thank you so much for talking to us. I must just stress, an NHS England spokesperson said they've set up an expert group to help cut the use of this drug in women who can get pregnant by 50% next year. And also from the government, the Department of Health said patient safety is a priority. We take all reports on this matter extremely seriously.
Yeah, do let us know what you thought about that interview, gbviews@gbnews.uk. It is just coming up to 9:20. It's Easter Bank Holiday Monday, so we're going to be telling you about the Easter egg appeal, providing some much-needed treats for disadvantaged children. All that to come after this.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you, or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Good morning and welcome back. You're watching and you're listening to Breakfast with Rosie and Paul here on GB News.
Yeah, we're live across the UK on both your TV and your radio. It's Easter Monday and hundreds of thousands of children across the country will be tucking into Easter eggs of all shapes and sizes.
For some disadvantaged children, that wouldn't be possible without the help of a charity that's helping children living in poverty and is working to provide thousands of young people with chocolate eggs this Easter.
Yeah, Jamie Carr is a trustee at Smile from London and Essex and joins us now. Jamie, really good to have you with us this morning. This sounds fantastic. Just give us an idea of what it's about.
So, Smile is a charity. We work with families in financial crisis to alleviate poverty where we can. The Easter egg appeal is personally one of my favourite appeals because who doesn't love Easter eggs?
Yeah.
So we collect donations of Easter eggs and we distribute them to children who potentially wouldn't be getting an Easter egg otherwise.
I mean, you make it sound so simple, but it's also really tragic. You know, any one time you're supporting over 400 families, 800 children, for many of whom their families don't live in a financial situation where they can afford what sounds ridiculous, the luxury of having a chocolate Easter egg.
Mm.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Most children just don't even think about it. You to get Easter eggs at Easter.
Or they have multiple.
Well, yeah. Would have been the case for me. And so, yeah, we don't want any child to be the child that doesn't get an Easter egg. So that's what we do.
So, and how does it work? So on a practical level, you're going, just talk us through that, operationally, how it works.
So we've got various donation points. They vary from schools that help us. We've got football teams, the local libraries, businesses that donate. People donate one egg. Some businesses have donated multiple eggs.
Yeah.
And then we distribute them to family hostels, to the families we support. And just that's.
And is that you in that picture? Was that you there?
I've not been the bunny. We do have somebody that's bunny.
A professional bunny.
We have a professional bunny.
Yeah, if you're listening on the radio, we've got the Easter bunny and huge numbers of Easter eggs. Just explain to us, Jamie, though, the quality of life that the families that you're helping have, because we're constantly talking about the cost of living crisis, the rising bills, inflation going up. Are you seeing that firsthand with the families that you're meeting?
Absolutely, and it's only getting worse as people have to make the choice sometimes as to whether you're buying food or gas, and that's what the charity's there for. We've got a clothing bank, a food bank. We help with people that are just leaving temporary housing and going into their new homes. We help with new home packs to because you get given a set of keys for a new council flat, but it's empty.
Yeah.
Your first night there, it's empty. So that's where the charities step in.
And the number of people you're helping is growing.
Yeah.
The number of people who come to you.
Yeah, and we get referrals from social services, local authorities, schools, the hostels, and it is only growing. As a small charity, we're doing our very best to support those families. But it is always difficult.
Yeah. There's a term that your organisation uses of supporting the hidden homeless. Can you explain that to us?
The hidden homeless is the people they're not the homeless people that you see on the streets. They're families. They're living in places that they shouldn't be. They're sofa surfing. They're sharing beds. We've got children that share beds. They're living with family in not their properties. They're in cramped conditions.
And sometimes B&Bs, things like that.
Yep, things like that. Just living week to week, and that's a real. They don't show up on statistics sometimes.
No, sure.
Thank you so much for coming in to talk to us about it, Jamie from Smile, distributing hundreds of Easter eggs across London and Essex over the Easter weekend. Really appreciate your
Great
time.
stuff. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
Lots of you have been getting in touch this morning, particularly over our top story, which this morning has been the real stinging criticism that the Archbishop of Canterbury has received, because he said that Priti Patel's new strategy of sending people who come to the UK, particularly across the Channel illegally, to Rwanda. Justin Welby said that was ungodly, and Priti Patel said, if you don't like it, what's your alternative?
Yeah, well, Barbara says, Welby has been out of touch with most people for a long time. He should stay out of politics and let a few Ukraine families live in his palace. Mel in the West Midlands, there are thousands of illegal immigrants slipping through the net and getting into society. I've come across many people who can't speak a word of English.
Well, good morning to Brian, who says, what people are missing is this is intended to be a deterrent. No one's going to pay £3,000 for an illegal channel crossing to end up in Rwanda. I mean, earlier we spoke to Norman Baker, former government minister, who said that this policy made him feel ashamed, basically.
Un-British.
To be British. It doesn't make me feel proud to be British. This is inhumane. But it's really sparked up lots of conversation today. And what we will do is continue this conversation across the rest of the day. So thank you very much for joining us. I'll be keeping you up to date with your news. But enjoy the rest of your Easter Monday.
Yep, we'll see you soon. Eamonn and Isabel are back tomorrow.
Last day of the bank holiday. Looking ahead, it's looking bright for many of us. A mix of sunshine and scattered showers. Let's look in the southwest, and we're going to see a mixture of sunny spells and scattered showers throughout Easter Monday morning. It's feeling fresher though. Temperatures around 13 degrees Celsius. Let's head over to the capital. There's going to be plenty of sunshine and dry weather for the London area and southeast England, with temperatures reaching about 14 Celsius by lunchtime. Let's head over to Wales. There's going to be a mixture of sunny spells and showers. They could be quite heavy towards the coast, feeling pleasant in the sunshine. In the Midlands, it's going to be mostly dry, but there are a few light showers possible, mainly to the north of Birmingham. Temperatures rising a little above average for the time of year.
Showers for northern England. Let's head there this morning too, on the heavy side from time to time. In between, there will be plenty of sunshine, feeling pleasant with light winds. Meanwhile, in Scotland, Orkney and Shetland, we'll see some early rain. Otherwise, Much of the country will be bright with sunshine and showers, breezy in the north and west, and in Northern Ireland a brighter day compared to yesterday. There will be plenty of sunny spells, but also the risk of some showers too, highs of around 12 degrees Celsius.
So through the day, most places are going to stay bright, but there will be some further scattered showers possible. And as we said, breezy in the northwest. That's how the weather's shaping up today.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.